a.m. club because my wife's boot camp slowed down and she they I guess they had their graduation or something. So I don't have to get up and be out of the house by 5. So I sleep in until 6 now, which is quite wonderful. And anyway, so I got up and I was listening to what's going on in the financial world and what's happening in financial news. I like to try to stay on top of that as much as I can. And one thing that I saw that was really interesting that I think is an important kind of economic consciousness exercise that we can start the day off with, because I actually have as a whole other topic I was going to hit, but this comes to mind. How many of you have heard about the population issue? Has anybody, give me a yes if you've seen the discussions that have occurred about basically the world's population is not growing fast enough? Has it, has anybody seen that? Especially in places like Europe and Japan and other places, the one of the challenges that they have is that people are just not having babies anymore. And there's I guess this what they call, I guess, the replacement rate, where they need a certain number of newborn babies to make up for the people that are dying. And what they're finding is that the numbers are not aligning, that the number of replacement people is not high enough to replace the people that are dying. So, what happens in a country when you don't have a high enough birth rate is that your productivity drops. It's a wealth thing. Your wealth in your country drops because a lot of your wealth is related to productivity. Productivity comes from having young people getting up and busting their butt, going to work, making things happen. So here's what I want to kind of reflect on for a minute. And I think this is really to me very telling. I literally came to this conclusion today. Um, so let me ask y'all this other question. How many of you remember, how many of you are old enough to remember when it was the opposite? When all of the discussion was in the other direction, where they weren't talking about not having enough people. They were saying that we have too many. Anybody remember that? You only got to go back like 20 years to find a time where the whole conversation was completely different. The discussion was not, how do we replace people? We don't have enough humans. Oh my God. It was, oh, the population's growing too much. It's going to explode. We can't feed everybody. And then you have people like Bill Gates, going around, and they were like going to African countries and trying to convince African people to have fewer kids. And they were introducing, and it was mostly sort of, it had a little bit of a feminist angle to kind of tell the women, like, hey, you don't have to have kids. Like, you can be in the factory working. You could be next to massa all day, like making a minimum wage instead of actually being with your children. And, uh, and I really fell for it. I was listening to that and I was hearing them tell us how we were going to have too many people and that I guess people will be falling off the edge of the earth or something because maybe the earth is flat. I don't know. I'm kidding. And it would just be too much and we'd all just die from starvation. So I just find, isn't that fascinating though? I mean, let's just reflect on that for a moment. I promise this gets back to the economics, and really, I want us to go to the higher purpose of really understanding the difference between God's plan, your plan, and Massa's plan. Yeah, in fact, let's put it in that order. You got Master's plan, your plan, and God's plan. And here's what I want to go. Here's what I want to dig into. I think it's so interesting that some of the so-called smartest scientists on the earth 20 years ago were telling you that our biggest problem population-wise was that we were going to have too many people. Now those very same scientists, just a few years later, are saying the exact opposite. They're now saying that we don't have enough people. And so even in big countries like China, which there are things to admire about their leadership, things to not admire. They had that for many years. They had their biggest problem was, oh my God, people are having too many babies. There's too many Chinese babies being born. So let's impose what they call the one child rule, where they literally made it a law that you can only have one kid. So people are like, oh, okay, well, we want to help China, so we're going to have fewer children. And then suddenly they're like, "Oh my God! Whoa, wait, slow down, reverse the bus. We don't have enough babies. Oh, what are we gonna do?" Now they're going back and they're trying to convince people to start having kids again. I don't know if this is not confusing to you, then it should be because it's weird. So here's my point. Okay, so Africa has a massive advantage in this arena in terms of national productivity and economics, largely because there were a lot of Africans who did not listen when Massa showed up, with with a Bible and a couple of dollars in a bowl of soup and said, you need to have fewer kids. There are a lot of Africans who still kept having babies because because I think that they inherently understood that maybe God's plan is for you to have kids and for you to prosper. And again, I'm not trying to get hyper religious or anything like that. I don't even go to church. So don't may I'm very spiritual, but I'm not religious. So you ain't talking to Dr. TD Jakes. That's not who I am. I love TD. I like TD. I think TD Jakes is a wise man, but I'm not trying to be him. I can't be him. It's impossible. What I am saying though is that I think that one of the strengths that we have as Black people, by the fact that we are spiritual, is that when you are connected to the universe, to God, to the higher purpose, which really is what economic elevation is all about. That's what consciousness is all about. Sometimes you just know when something just don't add up. So, sometimes you say, they're telling me I need to do this, but it just doesn't make sense. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. And that's an instinct. That's an instinct. I think the instinct popped out, for example, during the pandemic. I'm not telling you guys what you should have thought during the pandemic. I'm not judging whether you got the jab or not. I promise you I'm not. But isn't it fascinating that now that that pandemic is over, you're starting to see a whole bunch of people do a whole 360, like Chris Cuomo. Well, I used to say ivermectin was a horse tranquilizer, and I cussed people out because they used it and thought they were crazy. Now I apologize. I was just wrong. Oh my God, I was dead wrong. He's literally doing that. Dr. Fauci's in these hearings now. Again, I'm not telling you what you should think, but I am telling you that what my wife and I did, because my wife and I are both spiritual. My wife lives deep in the spiritual realm. She's into metaphysics, and I go with her to that place because I respect that. We just said, okay, when the pandemic started, we said, okay, let's just sit back and watch. Let's just really try because we don't trust the government on that level. We don't hate. We're not conspiracy theorists, but I know that there are conspiracies. I mean, it's been proven. If you look throughout history, there have been many, many conspiracies where the goal is to control people. Right? Again, Massa's plan. Massa always got a plan for you. Rockefeller had a plan for the public education system. He clearly stated, he said, I don't want a whole nation full of people thinking for themselves. I need a whole nation full of people that are going to get up and go to work every day. So there are always people who operate on that higher level that are playing chess because their consciousness is different from the rest of us. They're looking down at us as a collective instead of sort of being in the trees. They're not in the trees. They're not one of us. They're up here. So they're managing the bulk of us. Do you understand? So to some extent, and this is the beast of capitalism. You become kind of a commodity. So here, let's circle back to the whole population control issue. I would argue that part of what was going on in terms of them telling people to stop having babies was probably driven in part, at least in the United States for sure, driven by this idea that said if we can get more mothers to come out of the house and come to work every day, then guess what? Our national productivity goes up, which means we make more money. Again, not to say there's anything wrong with women working. I mean, I support all of that. That's fine. But what I really support is you doing what works for you, what makes sense for you. Because I don't think that we should just forget about our kids. Because I think that our children are a form of wealth that we often neglect because we're so busy going off and making that little tiny ass paycheck that you're getting paid at that factory. Um, and in fact, actually, in other areas where I think social movements were used to manipulate capitalist outcomes, was actually also, let's just, since we're talking about feminism or women and things like that, I do know for a fact that there was a time when they were trying to make more money and they were trying to get women to buy cigarettes. So what they did was one of the marketers, he said, I got this uncle in Germany who's struggling for money. His name is Sigmund Freud, and he understands the subconscious mind. So what he said was what Freud suggested was he said you can manipulate the subconscious mind to get women to smoke cigarettes by realizing that the cigarette can be shaped as a phallic symbol. It is a symbol of the man's power because it's kind of shaped like a penis. So if you use certain messaging, you can convince women that they're taking power from men by smoking cigarettes. That even though one has nothing to do with the other, but by smoking the cigarette, it's an act of defiance where you've taken away the power of the male by taking away his genitalia. And it worked. It worked. And what happened was they would have these big feminist marches and rallies where they would all be on the little parade thing smoking cigarettes. So the corporations, they didn't care about, women's suffrage and all the other core issues behind feminism. They just wanted to sell more cigarettes. And so to some extent, my point is to say that you really want to think about these things. And this is why I encourage you to always know the difference between your plan, God's plan, and Massa's plan. I believe that my plan definitely supersedes Massa's plan. I don't care about Massa's plan. I want to spot it and eliminate it so at least we can get to my plan. But then, really, my plan is limited because my plan can't match God's plan. Sometimes God has a plan for you that is bigger than the plan you have for yourself because you can't see on God level consciousness. God, they say God lives in the sixth dimension. I can only go up to the fifth dimension. I can't go up to the sixth dimension. So God lives and that's just me speaking mathematically. One day I'll bore you and explain what I'm saying with that. But literally, I know that God lives here and I'm sort of here and I'm trying to elevate as much as I can and connect to that. But I really do believe that God's plan is something that's greater than the plan that you can have for yourself because God lives outside of you. And so when I think about my own life and I think about the dreams I used to have and the plans that I had to achieve those dreams when I was 23, 24 years old, I had all these big goals and all these things I wanted to accomplish. And what was interesting to me as I look back on that is that the more I untethered myself from Massa's plan, because remember, Massa got a plan for a black man. Tell me if you know what I'm talking about. But Massa he has a lot of plans for black boys. When before you're born, they already have a plan for you. The first plan is to try to abort you, right? Make sure you're not even born, and then the other plan is to miseducate you or leave you uneducated. Maybe you fill up the prison so that they can make money from you in prison, or at the very least, at the very least, they can make money off you if you fall for these NBA, NFL dreams and end up working for Massa, whatever. So you live this life of struggle where other people are benefiting economically from your existence. That's Massa's plan. I believe Massa has a plan for every black boy in America. So fortunately, I was able to break away from Massa's plan and go to my plan. But what I realized is even going to my plan was limited. I untethered from Massa's plan by sort of saying, okay, no, this is who I really want to be. I don't want to be who you want me to be. I'm going to be who I want to be. And that required an act of rebellion. But then when I became more spiritual, I realized, wait a minute, God's plan was bigger than Boyce's plan because Boyce's plan was limited by what Boyce believed he can do. It was limited by my habits and preconceived beliefs of what success even meant. I didn't even know what success was when I was planning my plan for success, right? So as I learned what success was and what was really out here, and I began to get more exposed to the possibilities that existed in this world, and then sometimes by being rejected from the things I actually thought that I wanted, I started to see, whoa, wait a minute, there's so much more out here that I didn't even know about. I couldn't plan for this because I didn't know this was even there. So if I were to go back in time and talk to myself 30 years ago, I would say, you know what, just keep working hard and doing your best. Be free, be thoughtful, and be a good person. And then you're gonna get to where you're supposed to be. You're gonna get someplace special, but it's so special, so unique, and so different from what you can even visualize that you won't know it until you see it. And so now, as I've manifested or I've and I'm wherever I am right now. I really do feel that way. I didn't achieve my wildest dreams. I went beyond that to places I didn't even know existed. So what I would say to you is figure out the difference, right? Just know that Massa has a plan for you, and it involves like, go to school, get a good job, and let us barely give you enough money for you to survive until you get too old to work anymore, and then you move on. But I don't think that's really what you're meant to do. And then also the other piece beyond that is going back to the whole conversation about population. I think that the Africa is going to benefit. I know that Africa is going to benefit economically because they have population growth during the time where all these so-called smart white people were going around the world telling them to have fewer babies. And those are the people again that say, you know what, we're spiritual, we're connected to something bigger. We have these things called intuition. Maybe our melanin just makes us naturally intelligent about certain things. And there's something that just says to me in the gut of my soul, right here in my heart. I don't know why. I can't defy it with the science, but something tells me that actually my children are an asset and that it's okay for me to want to have kids. That family is valuable. And in fact, there are very few places on earth where family is more valuable than Africa. Africa, if you study Nigerian culture and things like that, and just really any culture in most parts of Africa, you'll find that family is really, really important, much more so than America. Americans, we kind of lose some of that. We forget how valuable our families are and how important they are. We do. And I think also, again, this is part of Massa's plan because if they can detach you from the family, then they can control you with the government and with the corporation. Just look at some of the social policies that they implemented in the black community. We don't, if you have a man in the house, then you don't get your welfare check. So the welfare check becomes the replacement for the man. And then you see what's happened with our families. And now, what happens is that when you don't have that unity of family to support you and protect you, then everybody's out here struggling on their own. Everybody's out here drowning as an individual because you would have been strong as a collective and the collective was chopped into pieces because it's much easier to exploit a detached, disconnected group of people than it is to exploit a unified group of people. Another example where they do this in the economy is labor unions. When workers are connected and defending their rights as a group and negotiating as a group and operating as a group, the capitalists have a much harder time extracting resources from that group or manipulating that group. So that's why union busting is kind of a big and a popular thing. It's happening everywhere. So in terms of, if you want to know how this population thing is going, let me give you a quick assessment on this as we kind of break this down. And then I'm going to actually go into the other part of my discussion here. So right now, basically, again, the scientists are worried that we're not going to have enough babies. I think that worry is ill-conceived. I think that it's premature. I think that a few things are going to make up for that because we human beings are pretty adaptive. Assuming that we don't blow each other up with nuclear war or something, that's something that could happen. And I hate to think about that, but it's true. But one is I think that there's going to be a lot of technology that will help people live longer, and so that's going to be longer and healthier. I think that's going to happen. Number two, they said right now a lot of countries are overcoming their population issues with immigration. This helped me really understand a little more thoroughly why the United States has such a sloppy, chaotic, ridiculous immigration policy of just opening the border and letting everybody flood in. It's gonna be a problem. It's gonna cause a lot of issues. But what does occur is that your economy is stronger when you have more people. So what they're looking at really is that the good outweighs the bad, so to speak. It does not, in my opinion, benefit the average American worker if you got millions of people coming from south of the border taking your jobs. But what happens is that the capitalists, the people that own shares of stock and run corporations, are saying, great, we have a greater labor supply, which means that we can have more productivity with a lower cost of hiring these people. Right. So they're getting more for less. That's why they keep saying, oh, the immigrants are great for the economy. This is so great for the economy. It's great for the overall economy. It may not be great for you. And that's what's creating the disconnect that exists right now, where they're kind of baffled. They're like, wait, the economic numbers are really strong. Yet if you ask an average person, they keep saying that the economic numbers are bad. They keep saying that the economy's bad and that we're in a recession, but that's just not consistent with reality. And they debate this, right? And I find it hilarious they have this debate. I'm like, well, the reason that you're having this debate is not because people are just wrong or they don't know what's going on, because that's what they'll say that maybe it's the headlines. Maybe the headlines are so negative that people think the economy's bad when it's actually good. No, it's because everybody's economy ain't the same. Everybody's economy is not the same. A rich man's economy ain't the same as a poor man's economy. The economy for people who own stock, which I'm begging you all to do, is not the same as the economy for people who work for a living. That's not y'all. We're not living the same reality. It's like we're in the same house, and the heat is on the east side of the house, and it's freezing on the west side of the house. We're in the same house, but it ain't the same temperature. So the workers in America are pretty much being sucked dry financially by the people at the top of the pile. That's what they're doing. They've got them addicted to buying things, no matter what. So people will go in debt in order to maintain the lifestyle to which they've been trained to become accustomed. And then so as they're going into debt, again, auto loan debt's at an all-time high, credit card debt's at an all-time high, student loan debt's at an all-time high. Workers' wages are not going up with the rate of inflation. So people are falling further and further behind. On top of that, when you've disconnected the family unit and you've got people thinking as individuals, then you minimize their ability to survive in an ever-changing economy where the resources become a little more spread out and thin. That's what's happening. That's why Gen Zers are getting killed. It's because nobody taught a Gen Zer how to survive in this economy. You survive in this economy by working together with other people. You survive in this economy by investing. These require levels of economic awareness that are not very popular right now. Most people are not interested in becoming economically aware. They're only aware of the pain that they experience from the lack of economic awareness that has plagued them since the day they were born. That is what's happening. People are aware of how sad they are. They're aware of how broke they are. They're aware of how mad they are, but they're not aware of how to fix the problem because nobody really talks about solutions. That's not what people do. So, with that being said, the other way that they're going to overcome this whole issue with the population is robots. AI and robots is another area where, from an economic standpoint, they're going to overcome the deficiency in the population. Is they're just going to have robots everywhere and lots of AI everywhere, and that's the wave of the future. So, just as an FYI, because we're solution oriented, I do have a list of AI stocks that I sent out to a lot of you. If you haven't gotten it yet, just pull out your phone, text the word stock to the number 87948. Text stock to 87948. I'll send you the AI stocks and I'll also send you links to profit alerts. I did one this morning where I talked about an investment I'm making right now in copper. And the ticker symbol for the ETF, the copper ETF that I like is COPX, COPX. So COPX. So feel free to go take a look at Copper CopX. And if you want to really learn more about stock market investing and want to share a membership to my stock market class with your entire family, just go to drboystockmarket.com. The first 30 days are 100% free. So you go to drboystockmarket.com. There's hundreds of lectures, thousands of hours of material. It's easy to understand at any level. On top of that, every week I have a section called What Dr. Boyce is Buying, where I mention stocks that I particularly like based on my research. And also you can come to class in the portfolio power plays every Tuesday and ask me any question. So feel free to go to drboystockmarket.com if you are interested. And yes, I do teach about ETFs. Absolutely. You'll know all about ETFs when you get in there. All right. So let me hop into another quick thing I was thinking about today from an economic awareness standpoint. This is a true story, and this is something that affects me dearly. So I'm gonna try to express it without being emotional. When I grew up as a as a kid, I had an uncle named Donald who was like an older brother for me. He was 8 years older than me, and he was my earliest memories were with him because when I was born, my mother was 17 and she lived with my grandmother and my Uncle Charles and my Uncle Donald and my Aunt Valeria. Uncle Charles and Uncle Donald are both dead. Aunt Valeria is still alive. And that was my earliest life. So anyway, with that said, it was downtown Louisville, Kentucky, on this a street called Bowling Avenue, which now is kind of like a torn down neighborhood. I think that it's kind of fallen into significant disrepair. Not like it was a poor, it wasn't a rich neighborhood even back then, but now it's really bad. Anyway, so my uncle, I watched him struggle a lot. You know, he wasn't really able to really do well in life. I think I know that he didn't have a father figure to raise him and or train him on life and stuff like that. So he was honestly kind of a weak man. And then on top of that, he also got introduced to alcohol at an early age. You know, he was a little baby, and I guess they thought it was cute and funny. My grandmother didn't do this; it was his father that did this. So he would take him to the bar, and he thought it was adorable to watch the little baby walk around drunk. So they would give him alcohol, and he would get drunk. And unfortunately, this planted the seed for a lifelong alcohol addiction that he had later on. So if you ever want to know why I hate alcohol, that might be why, because I've seen it destroy people that I love. I've seen great men become horrible men and weak men, violent men, terrible men, embarrassing men, disgusting men because they overindulged in alcohol or drugs. Give me a yes if you've ever seen these things up close, and give me a yes if you can at least empathize and understand with why I just really think drugs and alcohol are just one of the worst things that ever happened to black people. Not judging you if you drink. I know a lot of you do drink, and it's okay. Moderation, I get that. But really, I just don't see any. It doesn't bring good things to anybody's life, and it doesn't just destroy you economically. There's so many other ways that it harms you. Now, with that said, So my uncle went to prison. So he was again, he was my role, like he was my favorite human being on the entire planet. So imagine somebody that like when I would see him, I would get excited. I followed him around, all this stuff. And so I remember when I was 11, and I remember he went back to jail. And when I was 11, I think he was about 19, and I remember just sitting in the back seat of the car, and I remember crying like when they said, yeah, Donald went to jail again, and I remember just kind of crying. And as I was crying, like nobody, I remember just kind of feeling like nobody cared. You know what I mean? Like this is another reason, another thing I'm very passionate about is mass incarceration. Because I remember how hurt I was, because this person, like I loved him, and I was sitting in the back seat just kind of crying, and nobody, I felt like nobody cared, like nobody could feel what I was going through. And so anyway, I struggled in school. In like eighth grade, I remember I would sit there in the eighth grade and I would just write him letters, in jail. And anyway, so oh God, I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't damn. Uh I didn't know I was gonna have this reaction. I apologize. But I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. So anyway, so the year my time with him was like really mixed. And eventually there was a point where maybe about 13 or 14, it switched. I went from being the little brother to being the older brother. Like I was the one who, like, because I remember just kind of saying, okay, this guy is struggling. I can't really follow behind him. You know how you want to look up to somebody, but you can't. You can't look up to somebody who's shorter than you, so to speak. And because he was not built a certain way, and I don't know if it was his fault of his own. Like I had to kind of talk to my therapist to kind of figure out how to give him grace. But I remember in a way there was like an anger, like man, I was so disappointed in you. I needed you to be my hero, and you weren't. You couldn't be, So anyway, I kind of became the older brother. And so in my 20s, I remember him calling me. He'd call me to borrow money and stuff like that. And it was hard, it was weird, and it was more like I got to the point where I was sort of becoming more of myself, more of the person I am now. And I have a really strong father. My father who raised me is a very like disciplined, determined. He's a veteran. He doesn't take any shit. He believes you if you want something, you go for it, you fight for it, you don't back down, you do your best. You take responsibility, and these are values that my father was giving me. He wasn't my biological father, but I love him. And anyway, so I was kind of becoming that guy, right? Whatever that guy looks like, I was becoming him. Whereas my uncle was still kind of lagging behind. And the thing about prison that really bothers me is we don't talk enough about the mental health crisis, the mental health issues of just what happens to people when they get incarcerated. We don't talk about how their children feel, when their father's being taken away. We have so much empathy and so much sympathy for everybody else's pain, but we don't have any empathy for our own. We don't talk about just how painful and traumatic. Think about this. I'm 52 years old. I'm a grown ass man. I'm sitting here crying as I'm reliving how I felt when I was 11. It's hard and it's embarrassing, by the way, to do this in front of so many people. But I'm gonna keep going because God is telling me to talk. So, as we got older, and I promise we got to circle this back to economics because I know this is about economic awareness, and this is why I brought this up. So, as he got older, there was this constant drain of him always borrowing money. I watched him not just disappoint me, I saw him disappoint his children. I saw him disappoint my grandmother, who got older and could not keep bailing him out every time he went to jail or helping him every time he struggled. And so I learned from watching this. Like I watched this behavior, I watched this dynamic as this man who never learned how to become a man, right? He was always a little boy. And it's not so much his fault, right? Because there was no man to really show him how to be a man, right? And so he stayed a little boy even in his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s, and he would go to my grandmother, when she's in her 60s and 70s, and he would borrow money. Like, he wouldn't show up to help her. He wouldn't show up to help pay bills. He wouldn't show up to cut the grass. He would show up to borrow money. And he was also plagued by these mental health issues from incarceration and other things he went through, as well as drugs and alcohol. And so it got to the point where he became that relative that a lot of us have. A lot of us have a relative like that. Give me a guess if you have somebody in your family that reminds you of this, where they just can't get it together, where you just kind of feel like you can't depend on them. You can't, you're gonna have to bail them out. They're never gonna be there to bail you out. That's the dynamic. That's what happens. And these people are built like the world society builds that. Malcolm X, his bodyguard was talking about how it felt to be around Malcolm, and he started to cry. And they said, "Well, why do you feel that way?" He said, "Because Malcolm encouraged us to be men, and America wants the black male to remain a little boy." That's what he said. He said they want us to be little boys, and that's why. So if you ever see me get real pissed off when I see rappers or anybody encouraging black men to be immature and ignorant and ridiculous and backward, that's what it comes from. It's like we don't need little boys in the community. We need men. We need men that are going to lead. We need men that are going to build. That are going to think strategically, not these little cartoon characters that they give us in the media. And I think that's all by design, right? Because men build things, men create things, men break down barriers, men open doors, men protect, provide all these other things. Little boys just sit there and let things happen to them. They don't pay attention, or they don't try hard enough, or they give up easily, right? So long story short, I became kind of the older brother to my uncle, who became my like a little brother, who would call me and ask me for money and all that. And then one day, things just kept getting worse and worse. And then he became homeless eventually. And one night when he was homeless, and he'd go to the liquor store and stuff. And one day he got hit by a car, and I don't know if the driver says he was laying down the middle of the street. I don't know if he was doing that or not. But that's what the driver said, and he got hit and he got dragged like 100 feet down the street, and he didn't die. It was interesting. He had significant brain damage, and he also became paralyzed from the waist down. So he ended up in the hospital getting brain surgery and spinal cord surgery at the same time. He died on the operating table twice. And so, but again, because I loved him, I came to see him and did my best to help out however I could. It was really, really hard. And so here was this guy who didn't have any health insurance, any plan for the future. Like nothing was there where he could actually take care of himself in this really fragile state. And it was heartbreaking for me because again, he was my favorite person on the planet. So it's really hard. Some of you have seen this where you have to watch your favorite person on the earth suffer like in these horrible ways, just not being able to clothe yourself or feed yourself or use the bathroom, by yourself, just stuff like that. And so then eventually, after about 3 years, I think he eventually got an infection in the hospital, and he ended up dying. And I think about his life a lot because it shaped me. I was very close to him, and it made me really think about preparation in terms of how you want your life to go. And it made me think about how many of us are not trained to prepare for things like this. He wasn't prepared at all for the expense of being in a wheelchair. There was no insurance at all on anything, and he wasn't prepared in terms of education or no saving, investing, none of that. It was like he was just kind of surviving from day to day. And I think sometimes that stress and struggle of just surviving can keep us from having the consciousness to sort of make these long-term plans and to say, okay, well, what if this happens, or what if that happens? Or how do I provide for these other people in case something goes wrong in my path? And I also know that when you take all that lack of sort of awareness and you compound that with problems like drugs and alcohol, as well as mental health issues, which I think can be connected to drugs and alcohol, right? Like people will say, well, it's not the drugs that caused him to do this; it was mental health. He was bipolar, but those two things are connected, right? If you are a person who has mental health issues and you self-medicate through drugs and alcohol, then drugs and alcohol are not going to help your mental health. Like if you're already a little bit bipolar or already a little bit mentally ill, the drugs and alcohol are only going to accelerate and accentuate and worsen the pre-existing condition that is inside of you. So I think they feed into each other. So long story short, um, I saw this man who could have and should have been somebody's husband and father, could have and should have been an asset to his own mother, could have and should have been a role model for me. I saw him just literally um, deplete himself and shrivel into this broken little person that I couldn't even identify. And so what this made me think about from an economic awareness standpoint, and I think about him all the time. He died in 2012. I think about him at least two, three, four, five times a week. Um, what I learned from that experience is that a few things, and I'm gonna lay these things out as quick as I can to help you kind of summarize this instead of me just sitting here and embarrassing myself by getting emotional like that. One is really how we raise our children is so important in terms of whether or not they're going to be assets to the family. You have to really sort of decide and be very conscious and aware of going back to the beginning, the difference between your plan and Massa's plan. At the very least, your plan, God's plan, and Massa's plan. So God has an amazing plan in store for your children. You have an amazing plan, or you should have an amazing plan in store for your children. Massa does not have an amazing plan in store for your kids. My uncle that I just described to you, the sad part about his life is that I bet you that at least 60% of you can identify with another black male just like him. I guarantee you that there are thousands of you that are listening right now who have somebody in your family who fits that damn description. That is what we call in finance, we call that systematic. See, there's things that are what they call systematic, and then there's idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic is like a one-off. Like it's like, okay, I had a cousin who had one leg, one ear, and had an IQ of 170. That's idiosyncratic. That's a one-off. You're not going to have another person out here like that. You're not going to meet anybody like that. But systematic is where you see this same outcome replicated thousands and thousands of times all throughout society. I mean, you don't have to, you could throw a rock and find a broken black man in America just like that. I'm talking about baby daddy, got a bunch of kids, can't afford to take care of the kids, no education, no preparation, no economic security, and kind of and unfortunately been put in a position where they become a liability to the family when that liability should have been an asset. It should have been an asset. So what I ask, and this is my friend's speech from the group Arrested Development. He's a great guy. I love this guy. I don't even talk to him that much, but I have so much respect for him. He did a documentary called The N-Word Factory, the IGA Factory. I'm not gonna say the N-word because it's too early in the morning to be using words like that. But he had a documentary with that title, and I said that's a great title because what happens is that Massa's plan is to mass produce millions of young black boys that become liabilities to the community when they should have been assets. God's plan is for your son to be the hero of the family. God's plan is for your son to be strong. God's plan is for your son to be intelligent. God's plan is for your son to be a leader. God's plan is for your son to break us out of this stuff. God's plan is for your son to be a soldier. God's plan is for your son to be a winner. God's plan is for your son to be a builder. But Massa's plan is for that little black boy to be a liability and a drain on everybody else in the family. That's what Massa's plan is. Massa's plan, and this does go to economics, but this is consciousness. This is what I'm talking about economic consciousness. This is costing you trillions. Do you understand? We've talked extensively in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I talk extensively about trillions of dollars in black wealth that is lost when that son who should have been an asset to you is trained to be led to believe that he's going to be nothing but a liability, ain't taking care of his kids, doesn't want to read a damn book, wants to be a thug and a igga and a gangster or an NFL player, and doesn't spend any energy wanting to be anything that's beneficial to anybody but himself. So this guy in his 20s, 30s, and 40s, who's quicker to pick up the liquor bottle than he is to pick up a book, who doesn't want to take responsibility for anything that he creates in his life, that is a massive drain of wealth in the black community. And that is social engineering. That is by design. That is not accidental. That is not what God intended for your son. That was not God's plan. That so as hell shouldn't have been your plan. That was Massa's plan. And the reason Massa's plan won, I need y'all to listen to me. I need y'all to pay attention. The reason that Massa's plan overrides your plan and God's plan It's because Mass's plan is intentional. Mass's plan is deliberate. Mass's plan was done with the highest level of economic consciousness. He planned, he thought about it. He sat down and wrote it out. They said, okay, this is how we're going to take over hip hop music so that we can control the minds of millions of black males and get them to fill up the penitentiaries and to go out here and do all these other things that will fulfill every stereotype we have of them, keep them ignorant, blind, deaf, dumb, and stupid, and destroy and manage the black community. His plan was intentional and deliberate and specific. Was your plan equally intentional? Were you equally intentional about saying to myself, I know Master got a plan for my son. I'm going to make sure my plan is different. Let me tell you about my mama real quick. When I was 5, I've told y'all, some of y'all this story before. When I was 5, there was a white lady that was my elementary school teacher or my preschool teacher. And she sat my mother down and she said, I need you to understand how your son operates. She said, he's very active. He gets up, he walks around, he makes noise, and he doesn't follow rules very well. But she said one day I saw him doing that and I wanted to embarrass him. So I went and I kept on teaching. I kept ignoring him as he was getting up, walking around, singing songs and talking to the other kids. And the way I was going to embarrass him was I was going to ask him to repeat back to me every single thing that I had put on the board. And she said, do you know that when I did that and he got up and walked around and did everything he normally does? And I said, okay, boys, I want you to tell me everything that I was just teaching everybody. She said, do you know that he told me every single thing that I had been teaching? He was listening while he was walking around appearing to be distracted. So what she said to my mother, she said that when your son gets to the public school system, they're going to try to medicate him. They're going to diagnose him. They're going to do all these things. They're going to tell you that something's wrong with him. And this lady, this I'm not a person who walks around thinking that every white person tries to be evil. I don't think that way. This little white lady told my mother, do not let them put him on any medication. Do not let them diagnose him. Your son is fine. He just has a lot of energy. A lot of boys have energy, and that's it. And do you understand how critical that was when my mother years later intentionally, specifically, and really vehemently defended me when they tried to diagnose me or put me in special classes and do all these other things that would have derailed me? If my mother had not been specific and clear and intentional about pursuing her plan for me over Massa's plan for me, I would not be standing here talking to you right now. I would not be the man that I am right now. So what I'm really saying here is this. The world tends to move out of the way for people who know who the hell they are and people who know what the hell they want. So part of the reason that it's so important for you to be conscious on every level, and we talk about economic consciousness, and the economics certainly folds into this, but you got to be intentional about everything. You got to be intentional about everything. And if you don't know enough to have that clarity and intentionality, then this is where little things like meditation come into play. This is where you got to sit down and figure out who the hell you are, what the hell you want, what you want for your family, where this ship is going to go. You got to be clear. And when you are clear, the world will move out of your way. Part of the reason people don't mess with me is because they know that I'm clear. I ain't scared of nothing. I know exactly who I am. I know what I'm talking about, and you ain't gonna pump me out of nothing. And so I encourage you to understand the same thing. Because when you're not clear, what you do is you say, well, I don't really know what to do with my kids educationally. So you just hand them over to these other people and you trust these other people who don't have your child's best interests at heart. They don't have your best interests at heart. They're thinking about other stuff. Oh, well, I don't know what I want to do financially. So I think I'll just take this job so I can pay a couple of bills. And okay, you go ahead and do that. But just know that they're not thinking about your long-term economic security. You have to understand these things. So again, I end on this final simple note. You got God's plan, your plan, and Massa's plan. So because God's plan is it has more clarity and more relevance and it's more accurate than your plan because he knows more than you do, then Consciousness means elevation. Elevation means you're getting closer to God. God lives inside of you. That's a fundamental belief a lot of people have. So the God is inside of you. You got to listen to that. You have to, that's where you sit in silence, you meditate, you disconnect, you think about things, process things. And then once you've done that and you gain that clarity, then you make sure that your plan got to override Master's plan. Because Master ain't got nothing good planned for you or your black son. Nothing. Your black your black grandbabies. Master ain't got no good plan for none of them. But what is your plan? What is our plan? And don't tell me all day about what white folks are doing. I don't care about that, honestly, because I truly believe that when we really know who the hell we are and what we want, nothing can stop us. Nobody can get in our way. Nobody can. And that's what I want to share with you all today. And I hope that this fit. I did not know I would end up sniveling and crying and stuff. I didn't plan on that. I was really um mixed about whether or not I should talk about my uncle because I'm real sensitive about that. And honestly, that experience was so significant for me that it drives a lot of my um beliefs today. I'm really, really deeply offended by what they've done to our greatest men. They've locked them up. They've ruined them. They've either locked them up physically or locked a lot of them up psychologically. And this is something I'm determined to fight against because I think that we can do better than that. I think that God meant for something better to be for us, and I think that we can go get that. So I'm gonna finish up for today. Quick reminder, if you want to get reminded when we do economic consciousness every morning, just text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. Later on today, we're going to do the portfolio power play. We're going to I'll answer a million questions about the stock market. The stock I mentioned earlier that I'm going to buy, the ETF, I'm actually going to buy some more shares right now because the market's about to open. It's COPX, COPX, because the price of copper is expected to go up because the demand is going up, which is going to outstrip supply. And I think that's an opportunity. If you want to see other parts of the stock market or learn more and send me questions or see all the other stocks that I pick for the students, just go to drboycestockmarket.com. That's drboycestockmarket.com. The first month is free. And then I saw some of you were asking about my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. You can get a copy at drboycebooks.com. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. And I enjoyed speaking with you this morning. And I look forward to seeing. Let me see, the Fly Nubian Queen channel has it up there as well, and maybe I'm trying to think about ways that you can go find it. If you go look up Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia on YouTube or Spotify, you'll find it there. And so as we were kind of talking about this, and my wife is a therapist, and her doctorate's in social work. And so love money, politics, intelligent black people, things like that. And try to think about it, as two scholars might. So we literally lay against our pillows and kind of talk things through. And sometimes we don't agree. And in this case, this was no different. We didn't agree on everything, but we learned from each other, right? And so as we were talking about this, as I was thinking about Diddy, and in case you don't know the whole thing that's going on with Diddy, is that Howard University is having to really backpedal and kind of back off their relationship with Diddy because of all of his allegations and everything else. And this led me to really think about the nature of college and education and educated black people versus intelligent black people, or educated black people versus black people that have knowledge, and just sort of knowing the difference between education, knowledge, and wisdom. Those are three different things, right? Education is something that you can get. You go give a university $200,000, they'll give you an education, which is basically a piece of paper that gives you. It's like your working papers. It gives you this piece of paper you can use that will allow you to go into a specific economic system and get a chance to go and work for one of the companies within that system. It's not going to get you enough money typically to build wealth or get ahead or go build a community. Right. In fact, most college graduates, unfortunately, don't have the skill to build anything. They can't go and create an economy. They can go be a part of an economy, right? Those are two different things. There's a difference between knowing how to ride in a car versus knowing how to drive a car versus knowing how to actually design and build a car. Do you understand the difference? Let me know if you know the difference between those three things, right? If I ride in the car, then I'm going to go wherever the driver takes me. If I ride in the car, then I can't really dictate where this car is going to go. Now I can then maybe drive the car, which means I'm the boss. I become the HNIC. I'm the HNIC. I'm running this thing. I'm driving this thing. But even then, my power is somewhat limited because the people who actually get to decide where the car is going to go, it's not me. It's the person who owns the car. Do you understand? So the person who owns the car, they get me on the bat phone and they say, "Okay, boys," and I say, "Hey, I'm gonna drive the car to the hood. I'm gonna go to the hood today. We're gonna go back to the hood and pick everybody up in the hood." And the driver calls and says, "No, boys, now that's not what we agreed upon. I made you the HNIC because I need you to drive the Negroes to Beverly Hills. You have a bus route." And you're the boss, but don't act like you really running things up in here. You ain't running things. You're just doing the work. You understand? Like you're just implementing the bigger strategy that I decided to apply myself because this is my car. I own this thing, right? So there's the people that ride in the car, there's people that drive the car, and then maybe there are the people who own the car. And then you go even further, there are people who know how to build a car. So a person who owns the car gets to make every decision related to that car and what happens with that car, where it's going to go, etc. And then you got the people who know how to design and build a car, which for the most part, based on what we've discussed in our economic elevation trainings that we do every morning, those are people that I refer to as economic gods. An economic god has the infinite ability to manifest a reality. They can do what the founders of Silicon Valley did, where they went to these orange groves in California where nobody lived, and they said, let's build some computer companies out here. And they did, and that became Silicon Valley. I don't know if y'all know the history of Silicon Valley, where literally about a third of the world's wealth is generated in Silicon Valley, where all the big tech companies are, Google, Facebook, and all that. That started off as just nothing. That was just a bunch of empty orange groves, and nobody wanted to be out there. So people, they saw a vision, they manifest that vision. And so one of the things that's interesting to me, and I'm going to go ahead and lay this out here, is that I believe, and this just came to mind as I was thinking about Howard and Diddy and HBCUs and some of the things that I love about HBCUs, but the things that also frustrate me, is that most HBCUs and don't really shape their own destiny. Like if to me, how you shape your destiny is driven by who's paying your bills. And when I look at the donors of HBCUs lately, most of the biggest donors are white people for the most part. And that doesn't mean, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't take the white man's money ever. Sometimes that money's fine and it can help. But most independent, liberated communities that have strong institutional infrastructure do not depend on another group to sustain themselves economically. They don't. If I go to Notre Dame, I bet you there are not a lot of people who are donating millions of dollars to Notre Dame who are anti-Catholicism, right? That's a Catholic school. And although I'm sure that they take money from people who are non-Catholics, they're not going to let somebody come in there and say, no, 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 you're up here talking about the Pope, and we don't like this Pope. So because we gave you so much money, we're going to require you to not mention this guy because that's our policy. However, if you go to a lot of HBCUs and if Howard University says our commencement speaker this year is going to be the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, what do you think is going to happen? I'm not telling you have to be a fan of Farrakhan. I'm a big fan. I know the minister. I lived around the corner from him. I like him a lot. He's great to sit with. He's authentic in terms of what he believes. I love sitting with Minister Farrakhan. But you don't have to love him. But what do you think is going to happen if Howard University announced their commencement speaker was Louis Farrakhan? What do you think? You think it's just going to fly through and everybody's going to say, "Oh, that's wonderful"? I mean, this man, look at the Nation of Islam. I mean, we care about the black community, so we want black people to have healthy, happy lives. We want them to be educated. We want them to be wealthy. We want them to have strong families. The Nation of Islam can do all of these things. The Nation of Islam, when I speak to members of the nation, like my good friends like Brother Nuri Muhammad, I spoke to Brother Enoch yesterday. I just so many other great brothers and sisters associated with the nation. They are in alignment and willing to fight and die. They're one of the few institutions in America, by the way, that's willing to fight and die to defend and to elevate and to liberate Black people. They just are. I mean, they're doing they're kind of willing to do those things that would make most of the HNICs very uncomfortable. Like they're willing to go into the bad neighborhoods to help work with gang members. They can do things with Black men out of prison that nobody else can do. They can take a man. I've never seen an institution that can take a man that's on drugs and make him into one of the most solid, upstanding human beings that you've ever met. Tell me if you've seen this. I mean, this is admirable. This is extraordinary. You can't name another institution anywhere that can do that. Nobody else can do that. Okay. And why is that important? See, what I want you to understand, this connects to your economics. You got to realize that your community will only go as far as its men. It'll only elevate as far as its women too. And I mean, the women matter too, right? Because women are the mothers. You give life, right? You know, we know how important the women are and the mothers are. But if your men are down here, if your men are, 3 feet tall, intellectually speaking, and mentally speaking, psychologically speaking, spiritually speaking, if your men are trained to be 3 feet tall, then your community can only be 3 feet tall. Your community will never be a giant, strong community if your men are kind of kept at this very low baseline level. And so my point is circling back, given that the Nation of Islam is one of the few institutions in America that really understands these things and understands how important it is to build strong, sturdy, quality men of substance that you can build a community on, who will fight and defend, stand up for things, follow through on things, etc. I want you to really process why it is that HBCUs are not allowed to affiliate with people like that. However, if you go back to 2014 and you looked up who Howard University's commencement speaker was in 2014, it was a guy named Diddy. Now, Diddy, again, we know he has this recent controversy, and everyone has this selective outrage about, his past, even though a lot of that was already out there. A lot of us that follow hip hop know that Diddy was, under some suspicion ever since Tupac got killed. Like this goes back to the 90s. This ain't nothing new. Some of y'all act like you just found out that some shady stuff was going on in 2023. No, it was go back 25 years. Come on. But putting that to the side, um, even in 2014, when they announced that Diddy was their commencement speaker, I thought it was kind of strange, and some of the students did too. Some of the students were feeling this instinct, but it wasn't confirmed or validated by anybody. There was no adult willing to sit there and say, you're right, you've got a good point. Because some of the students were asking basic questions, like they were like, but our commencement speaker, he dropped out of college, and we don't know if we want a commencement speaker who's going to tell us that our degrees are worthless. Now, I don't think that's what Diddy said. And also, there are plenty of successful people who never went to college. We've explored the critique of college, what it does and does not do for you. But that was a good point. That's a good. It's kind of like, and then if you go deeper, and this would have been my issue because again, in 2014, I was in my 40s, so I saw it differently from a 20-something-year-old. And I said, okay, so is this the best you got? Like, is this the best you can provide when it comes to Black men? Because Diddy's not so much of a man of substance. He's very flashy. He's very loud. He hasn't built a lot of infrastructure. For many years, a lot of people had the false impression that he had this liquor brand and he owned it and all that. And then you found out later that he didn't really own it. He was kind of an employee. He was kind of a mascot, kind of a brand ambassador, which is fine, but that's very different from being a boss. It's very different from building infrastructure. It's very different from building factories and creating 100,000, 200,000 jobs. And so what has occurred, and I want you to pay attention here, because this is cultural. In my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, I explain that your economics is failing because you have bad economic culture. Part of the source of your bad economic culture is that you've been trained to really listen to the rappers. You've been trained to really pay attention to people who've learned a long time ago that it's much easier to say I did something than it is to actually do something. Right? It's I'm gonna get more likes on Twitter if I say that something's going to happen than I'm gonna get by actually doing the work required and making the 10, 20-year commitment required to build what I that's why, for example, you've had 50 years of hip hop and you haven't had any Black-owned hospitals come out of that, any Black-owned schools come out of that, not a lot of Black-owned businesses, not, and now think about this though. This is what's interesting to me is that I can go to a lot of neighborhoods where if I say, who are the Black people that you admire the most? Who are the most famous Black people in America, most successful people? A lot of times they're going to name people in the entertainment industry, and that's fine. But I go across the street and I look at the white community, and the most famous white men that I see are guys like Elon Musk, who are talking about, quantum physics on his Twitter page and talking about building rocket ships to Mars. Whereas I go over to our side and it's maybe a rapper 50 Cent, and we say, and you go to his page and go look at his page. It's very there's a lot of childish stuff on there. There's a lot of very it's comedy. It's childish comedy. And so what this does when you're childish and you're comedic and you're loud and you're boisterous, that's very childish behavior. And you cannot have a community that gets built when your so-called leaders are children. The thing about Diddy that's interesting to me is that he, to me, is like a Black Peter Pan. And I'm going to offend a lot of people when I talk like this, but it's okay. When men talk, children get offended. He's a Peter Pan because if you look at his behavior in 2024 and the things he did to be cool and popular in 2024, it was very, very similar to what he did in 1998. I saw this man for 20 something years and I said, this man has not changed. I've changed. I got older. You get in the 40s, your knees start creaking, you get a little gray in your beard. I finished my doctorate. I became I traveled around the world and became a scholar and started doing other things and tried to partner with other people to grow. I got married, raised kids. This guy kind of just was always dancing a lot. He was always dancing. And I was like, man, it must be hard to do all that dancing when you're like 55 years old. What are you going to do when you're 60? And so what I'm saying, and this comes out, it always comes out the wrong way. It comes out the wrong way because I think that we've been trained to think the wrong way for so long. If you've been trained to drive 100 miles an hour to the north, it's going to be real. It's going to jolt you when somebody turns the car around and says, let's go south, right? It's going to be very confusing. It's going to twist your neck. You're not going to get it. You're going to be mad about it. And I get it. Some people will get mad about it. But I really think that you have to really process and consider the fact that there is a connection between broken Black economics and who you're actually looking up to for economic guidance. Remember, Howard University is an institution that's really, it's a great institution in the sense that there are great people affiliated with Howard. I know some of them. But it's interesting that you would choose a Diddy for your commencement speaker when right down the street you have the greatest economic thinker in the 20th century, Dr. Claude Anderson, right down the block, the author of Powernomics. And you've never invited him to your campus once because you're not allowed to. You're allowed to bring the clowns to campus. You're allowed to bring misguided Negroes who are going to guide Black people into a ditch, who are going to encourage us to drink more liquor, beat up women, behave like rappers, and be goofballs. But you're not interested in bringing the man who's going to have a serious conversation about the fact that if you don't learn how to own something, they are going to kick you in your ass. If you never grow up, and especially the men, if you don't grow up and grow some balls and learn how to start creating things, building things, creating jobs, developing industry, building infrastructure, you will never find your way out of slavery. You will not. Liberation for Black people does not come through a donation from Mackenzie Bezos. I'm not saying that Mackenzie, that's the wife of the founder of Amazon, Jeff Bezos. She's given lots of money to lots of people, and I love her. Bless her heart for that. I love her, the fact that she's doing this. But that ain't gonna give you liberation. That's welfare. That's welfare. And again, it's not bad. It doesn't mean you shouldn't keep taking it. Free money is okay. But the problem is in economics, there's a saying that says there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So when you have your strongest, supposedly strongest institutions that are sitting and waiting for a white man or white woman to write a check, what you don't understand about money, now remember, money is my thing. My PhD is in money. What you have yet to understand fully, and this is what I want you to be conscious about. This is our consciousness exercise for today, is to understand that sometimes when you get that check and you think that it's making your life better and making your life easier, you're being handed a blanket that is filled with smallpox. It is a Trojan horse. If you grow up in the hood, a lot of people maybe knew like the neighborhood dope dealer, right? Who would appear to be the nice guy, and he would be somebody that stepped in maybe because you didn't have a dad or whatever. and you need lunch money, he give you a little lunch money. Here you go. And maybe he would even tell you, make sure you stay in school, boy. Make sure like that kind of street wisdom. And then next thing you know, something else happens, with your mama, or you don't have enough food. He brings by groceries and gives you a little money or whatever. Well, at some point, see, here's what's happening is that he's not necessarily harming you in the moment. He's not asking you for anything. He's not. He's not saying, here, I'm gonna give you this money. I need you to go smoke some crack. He's not doing that. But what he's done though is he's bought your affiliation. He's bought your loyalty. Now, no matter what he does, no matter how terrible he becomes, because he's gonna have to be terrible at some point. That's how he became the kingpin of the neighborhood. You're pretty much unable to really do anything about that. You're not, or if he does need a favor, if he does call in a favor, you better deliver. You better deliver, because if you don't, then there will be consequences. You're going to lose the support that you've been receiving, and it might be even worse than that. And to some extent, economic power operates in the same way. When those other folks, and let's particularly talk about communities that are known for being very good at economic warfare. And I'm going to go ahead and point the finger at the people that are connected to what's happening right now in the Middle East. I'm not going to say it because I don't even want to even start that kind of static, but y'all know who I'm talking about. And I'm not saying that they're all bad. I'm not saying that everybody's trying to be sinister, but what I'm saying is that there is a long history of us being told that, hey, these are your friends. These people want to help you. This guy owns a record label. He wants to sign black artists, right? Or whatever it is. Or they want to make a donation to your institution because your struggle is similar to our struggle. And then what always occurs, inevitably this occurs, at some point, the rubber meets the road, right? At some point, a situation presents itself that becomes a conflict of interest. At some point, you as a black person says, no, we need to go this way. But then what happens? You get that little phone call. Hello, president of such and such university. This is Mr. Big Donor who gave you $100 million to build your stadium. And I really think you might want to reconsider inviting Farrakhan to speak at your graduation, because he's anti-Semitic, and it's proven. And you say, well, what made him anti-Semitic? How did he become that? Well, because we said so, and because we wrote the damn check, and because you better do what the hell we say, or we're gonna break your plate. That's what it comes down to. That's what it just boils down to. It boils down to the fact that throughout most of history, I can't think of a single time. In fact, there is no time that any group of people has ever been able to be liberated and so-called free who could not pay their own bills. Let me tell me if you can understand. Tell me if you agree with this. Not just on an aggregate level. We don't have to talk about the big picture, like politically and nationally. Let's talk about individually. Do you think that a man or woman can truly be free if they never ever learned how to pay their own bills? Like, you got a lot of y'all got kids in the house. We got kids in the house that think that they grown. They think that they can do whatever they want. They think they running things. And sometimes we let them think that they're running things. We sit back passively and we allow them to just exist and to live. And we don't intervene unless we have to. But when the rubber meets the road and you get to the point where you want to do something that is not in alignment with our vision for this family, that's when I pull out the trump card on you. That's when I'm slamming the big joker on the table. That's when I'm stepping in and saying, "Oh, wait, you thought that because we didn't bother you that you actually pay bills up in here. You really thought that was your room? No, that's not. No, you locking the door on your. No, that's not your room. That's my room actually. I'm letting you live there. Do you understand? Like, I'm being nice to you, but I'm about to put this big joker on the table to let you know you thought you was gonna win with your little king of spades, didn't you? That's what you thought you was gonna run the table with a king of spades. I was letting you win. I was letting you have the illusion of power. You had the illusion of freedom, but you're not really free. Pinocchio will never be a real boy. The only time you're ever going to be free, Negro, is when you're out of this house and paying your own bills. That's now, I'm not saying you got to go. I'm not pushing you out. I'm never going to do that. But I need you to understand who's really in charge. And in this particular situation, I'm gonna have to put some boundaries on your behavior. And those are real conversations. A lot of you have had these conversations with your kids. I have a, I'm the bonus dad and I love my children. I really do. I love all my children. I have one biological child, but a lot of kids I just scoop them up because I just love supporting Black children, and they're a blessing to me. And my oldest son is 6'9", so he's much taller than me, and he looks down at me, and I'm like, you're taller than me physically, but I'm about 12 feet tall. So in this house, you're not don't challenge me in that way, because you're not, it's gonna be ugly. It's gonna be uncomfortable for both of us. So I need you to go ahead and just submit, just accept the fact that you're the 20-year-old who can't pay his own bills, and I'm the 52-year-old who ain't scared of shit. And then we'll get along much better at that point, because I want to mentor you. I want to help you. I want to help you become a man. Right? Because you're a great man. I want you. But see, this is my and this so here's my point. I'm being silly here, but y'all get the point. You can't have freedom. You can't really control nothing. You can't really run nothing until you're willing to make the sacrifice required to do that. And the problem that I have with the rappers is that the rappers are really good at talking a lot. They're really good at telling you, I'm the boss of this and I'm doing that and I'm running this and I'm running that. And it creates this culture where you have a lot of fast talking men in your community. Tell me if you know Negroes like this. A lot of y'all know guys like that. That'll talk all day about what they gonna do, and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that, and then won't follow up with anything. Literally will say, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna be there Tuesday, girl. I'm gonna pick you up. I'm gonna take you to the restaurant. We're gonna do it, and don't follow through. And that's because they were never taught that. They were never really taught what is required to see. The thing is, freedom requires sacrifice. And I don't think we have a culture that really encourages tremendous sacrifice. Um, in terms of when we're speaking about wealth, for example, when we talk about wealth as being delayed gratification, uh, a preparation culture as opposed to a reaction culture, a culture that instead of being reactive, you're proactive, you prepare, you build, you work, you do the work, you quietly work along and build the infrastructure you need in order to secure your freedom. So when you talk about financial freedom, here's what I want to get to on this, so you can understand what financial freedom looks like. A lot of people don't even know what financial freedom looks like. A lot of people think financial freedom means having a whole bunch of money. That is not true. That is not true. There are lots of $10 million slaves out here. There are people that make $100 million a year who have less freedom than Kunta Kinte did in the book Roots. Like they have you have a lot of $100 million Kunta Kintes out here. So don't think that having lots of money is the only way to economic freedom. Economic freedom pretty much means that you can make the decisions that work best for you without money being a barrier for you to make those decisions. So sometimes that means having more resources that allow you to make critical decisions without anyone's interference. Like, for example, the 6'9", 20-year-old that I told, he needs to learn to pay his own bills, and then he gets to decide what he's going to do that day. But another aspect of that is knowing the difference, which something that so we don't talk enough about this, knowing the difference between good money and bad money. Understanding one clear idea, and some rappers get this. My friend Immortal Technique, one of the greatest rappers of all time, and when I say my friend is kind of loose, but we talked 2 times and we talked for 2 hours because he's so intelligent. I just respect smart people, and so one thing that he talked about extensively in the interview I saw, and I agree with this 100%, is that all money ain't good money. All money ain't good money, and I don't know if we really know that. I don't really know if we are always aware. I think sometimes we get lulled to sleep into thinking that we have more friends than we do. I don't think that we understand that, just like that little kid who doesn't understand that that drug dealer who offered to buy you the candy bar, that he's not doing it just because he's trying to be nice. He's buying something from you. He's buying loyalty from you. Right. And sometimes that's okay. I'm not saying the drug dealer is not capable of doing something good. I'm just saying that a financially conscious person would say, no, 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 Tyrone, we give the nice man his money back, because we don't want to be we don't want to be connected to none of that, right? And that to me is what the HBCUs, or what a lot of Black institutions don't get. They will take this money, and because it appears to have no strings attached, but they don't understand that most people, when they give you $100 million, they may not ask for anything explicitly, but they're definitely expecting that you're not going to do something that they vehemently disagree with. So that might mean something political. It might mean if I'm Mackenzie Bezos and I give you $100 million and I'm pro choice and you happen to be pro life, no, you can't be pro life now. You can't. You what? You wait. You're bringing this speaker to your campus who's going to talk about the millions of black babies that get aborted every year. Oh, that's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. But and then you say, but wait, you told us that the money came with no strings attached. Pay attention. And then she says, no. I'm not saying that the money is that I'm using the money to control your behavior. I'm just saying that I don't feel comfortable supporting an institution that would bring in a crazy radical speaker who would say something like that, because speakers like that are dangerous. That's what they do. That's what people do. They say you're free to do what you want, but you're not free to do what you want and still get my money at the same time. Do you understand? Does that make sense? And I do that a lot too. We all do it. Money is power. See, this is not. I'm not accusing them of doing something different from what we've done with the kids. When the 17-year-old comes in and tells me what she want to do, what me and her mother will say, well, you're free to do whatever you want, but you're not gonna do no, you're not gonna have an iPhone when you go do it. And also you're gonna be grounded after it's done. But you go and do you, girl, do you, girl. Just don't ask me for no money because I'm not gonna support that. Do you understand? So this is my point. My point is to say that Black economics and those who understand what economic power looks like, books like Powernomics needs to be required reading at every HBCU in America. Any Black person that wants to be free, that wants to understand what freedom looks like, needs to read books like Powernomics. Because all this stuff, you have so many, do you know how many educated Negroes there are who are miserable? Do you know how many Black people that went to school, got all the fancy degrees and all the credentials, and even got the good job, are coming home every day and having to drink themselves to sleep because they're so stressed out? I mean, really, do you know how many people like literally are like, wait, I'm supposed to be living the dream. I'm successful. I'm supposed, but I don't feel successful. Well, you need to start listening to yourself. That pain in your gut that you're ignoring because people are telling you that it's not real, that pain in your gut comes from the fact that you know something's off balance, something ain't right. That recipe, like you got a recipe for what was supposed to be delicious chicken parmesan or something, and but you're like, this doesn't taste good. It tastes like nasty. Like that's because somebody put rat poison in the damn recipe. But you going along eating the rat poison, thinking that is health food, because you're not listening to yourself. You're not listening to the universe. The universe tells you what freedom feels like. The universe tells you what God will tell you everything you need to know about what it means to be a liberated Black person. I kid you not. Some of y'all don't listen to the universe, you don't listen to yourself, you don't listen to God, and all that's inside of you. And what I mean by that is that I don't even a dog knows the difference between what it feels like to be free and not free. Dogs don't go to college. Dogs don't have bachelor's degrees. Dogs don't even read books, but a dog don't need to know how to read to know what it feels like to be a free dog versus being a dog that's in captivity. So you are the dog to some extent. Some of us, many of us, are like the dog that is in captivity that's being told every day that you're free. Just like when we go vote, you know how we vote and they tell you that you're in a free democracy and all that, and then but you're like, if I'm free, then how come I only got two choices? How come you're giving me like one old crusty man against another old crusty man? That's not the choice I would want to make. I don't like either one of these people, but they're like, no, but you have freedom. You have to exercise your freedom. We're going to require you, we're going to pressure you to exercise your freedom to vote, right? So you're so free that everybody's pressuring you to go and do something that you may not feel comfortable doing. Well, that's not freedom. And some of you are aware of that. And then maybe some people aren't. I don't know. But I'm telling you that freedom, financial freedom, could either come from having the resources to make the decisions that you need to make without resources being a constraint, and then two, having the discipline to not take resources from people that are going to have an agenda that is different from your own, or being able to walk away from money. The ability to walk away from money in financial consciousness is just as important as the ability to go find it. Let me say that again. When we talk about every day, this is what we do: economic elevation, financial consciousness training. We do this every single morning. The ability to walk away from money is just as important as the ability to find it. Do you understand? When you talk about freedom, you talk about economic consciousness, the ability to walk away from money is just as important as the ability to find it. Just like eating food, the ability to find food is not the only thing you should be thinking about when you're talking about how to eat enough to be healthy. You also have to know which food you don't want to eat. You have to know which food is going to poison you. You have to be able to have that discernment. And I don't think that our economic discernment is very high. You know why? Because beggars can't be choosy. Your HBCUs, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but y'all some begging Negroes. Y'all begging every year. It's all about, oh, we can't do this, we can't pay the bill, we don't be struggling. Blah, blah. Beggars can't be choosy. So when a beggar is hungry, a beggar can't. You hand a beggar a McDonald's cheeseburger that's got some rat poison in it. Oh, he better eat that thing. He's not gonna be like, well, actually, I wanted a salad, and I was wondering if you could go to Chipotle and get me a chicken bowl with the quinoa. Yeah, like he can't do that. He can't be picky. He can't say, well, I was hoping to get something healthy. No, you can't. You're not in a position to be choosy. So you're gonna eat whatever they feed you. So here's what I'm saying. I'm solution oriented on this. You have to have a whole generation. This is a national emergency. This must be code red, state of high alert. You need an army of young people that are trained on powernomics related principles who are going to go out in this world and learn how to build something. You got to have 10 million entrepreneurs, 10 million investors, 10 million wealth builders, 10 million people trying to own real estate. You got to have more black people trying to build wealth with the skill of wealth building. You got to have more of them than you got basketball players, football players, rappers, twerkers, and everything else you got. You're mass producing people that know how to twerk. You're mass producing people that can bust a rap, but you also need to mass produce people that are gonna go create a job and build a business that even understand how to do that. And that's two steps. First, they have to understand that it's important. And then second, they got to know how to do it the right way. A lot of people don't know how to do it the right way because you spent 12 years learning how to twerk. Or 12 years learn whatever the hell they teaching in these damn schools. They show as hell ain't teaching them how to read, write, and do math. They're not doing that. They're show as hell not teaching them nothing about money. So I don't know what the hell they teaching them in public school. I don't know if they teaching them how to use proper pronouns and to know if a boy is actually a girl. I have no idea what they're teaching, but whatever it is, they're not teaching them what they need to know. And the thing about it is it ain't just the public schools. It happens at the college level too. I'm a college professor. That's what I do. I taught at the University of Kentucky, Indiana University, Syracuse University, etc. I also wanted to teach at Howard. I interviewed at Howard. I went there. I went there and said, "Hey, I'd like to be on the faculty." And I got interviewed by a fucking Chinese man. Why in the hell? Excuse my French. I'm not gonna cuss anymore. I was like, "Why in the hell am I being interviewed by a Chinese man who is gonna get to decide whether or not I'm capable of teaching African American students?" How is that possible? Who decided that this is a good idea? How did this happen? But this is what backward thinking does. It makes us think up is down and down is up. Because I guarantee you this. Give me a yes or no. Give me a yes or no. Do you think that I could go to China? China's a big country, billions of people, thousands of universities, thousands. Do you think I could find one university in China where an African American man or woman gets to decide if a Chinese scholar is capable of teaching Chinese youth? You answer that for me. What do you think? Do you think I can find one? I'm talking about, I don't know how many universities there are in China. I want to Google it now because I'm really curious. Let's Google that real quick. Let's dig into this. Is going to show you how backward we are, how crazy we've become. Let me see here. Let me ask AI. Let me see. How many universities are in China? This is gonna be fun. Let's just do this. Is a consciousness exercise. So let's see what we can find here. I'm looking it up right now. All right, so at recent data, there are 3,113 colleges and universities in China. So do you think that out of 3,013 colleges in China, do you think I can find just one? I don't need to find 10 or 100 or 1,000, just one where I can find a black man who gets to decide whether or not Chinese scholars are capable of teaching Chinese children. Now, mind you, most of these universities have 10, 20, 30 departments. So literally out of these, 60, 70,000 academic departments, do you think I can find one? No, you know that I can't. Y'all know the answer to that question. So what's wrong with you? What's wrong? Who twisted your brain backward to make you think that that makes any damn sense? I'm not bragging, but I put what we've done in the Black Business School toe to toe with anybody on the planet. We have taught wealth to more African Americans than probably anybody on the planet I can think of, and definitely for this amount of time. Nobody else I can think of has taught wealth to thousands of African Americans every single year for the last 15 years. Nobody, I don't know. Maybe there is somebody out there, and I'm not saying I'm the best and the only, none of that. I'm not here to put myself on a pedestal, but literally, I am definitely one of the most effective teachers of wealth to the Black community ever, right? Right. I'm just saying this, right? Not bragging, just saying it as a fact. So how in the hell is it that the Chinese man that they have at Howard that's gatekeeping the finance department says, this guy's not a good fit. You know, I'm not, and again, I'm not here to. I don't care. I don't care about the job. I don't. So don't call me Howard and offer me a job. I'm not hireable anymore by anybody. But it bothers me. You know, I mean, it was nothing wrong with my credentials. I got trained by Renee Stoltz, one of the greatest thinkers on the entire planet in the field of finance. My dissertation committee was flawless. Like they had the top people from the top universities. So my point is to say that something's kind of wrong. And I'm going to tell you a lot of it's um wrong because your institutions are shaped in a really weird way. And they're taking money from really weird people who should not be funding our smartest and our best and our brightest. They shouldn't be funding them, they shouldn't be guiding them. I'm not saying that all this is bad. I'm not saying they have to give their money away. I'm saying that something is distorted. You know, when powernomics is seen as dangerous, but yet a violent rapper is not. Does it like how is Dr. Claude Anderson dangerous, but the rappers you bring on campus are not dangerous at all? How is Farrakhan seen as dangerous when you have dangerous white people coming to campus all the time? You will gladly invite Joe Biden to campus, knowing that he incarcerated more black men than any president since slavery, but yet somehow powernomics is scary, or the Nation of Islam is scary. Who told you they were dangerous? Oh, I get it. Yeah, the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern, what is it? The Southern Poverty Law Center. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that it's very strange that we have these people that have solutions. By the way, like all these problems that plague the Black community have been solved. They're easily solvable. Your biggest problems lie in a few key areas. Let's walk through these problems really quickly, shall we? And then we'll state how the solutions are very simple. Your kids are not being educated. Their education is absolute shit for a bit large majority of them. The answer, black owned schools. There are thousands of black teachers around the country who, if provided the resources, would educate the children at the highest levels with love and everything that they need to be successful. I have seen this in real life. I went to visit Freedom Home Academy International in Chicago. This school has 7-year-olds who know things that college students will never know. So all you'd have to do is fund Freedom Home Academy with billions of dollars, the same way you put billions of dollars into music that tells young black men to become criminals and to disrespect women and to get high at every available opportunity and to waste their money and to destroy their lives and to murder each other. If you put just as much money into educating children the way they educate them at the Muhammad University of Islam as you put into educating our kids to kill themselves, then that whole education problem would disappear overnight. Other problems, the economic problem, the wealth issue. Well, the wealth issue is easy. You can't you'll never build wealth in a community if you're raising a bunch of employees who are starting their careers in debt. That's what's going on. So the half of all black college graduates default on their student loans. They cannot pay their student loans. So that's why you have millions of highly educated black people with bachelor's and master's degrees who've been working for 30 years who have a net worth that is lower than a newborn baby. That is the distorted economic backwardism that we are taught at an early age. And we're, for whatever reason, I guess because things that are familiar are very comfortable, things that are new and radical scare you. Maybe that's why you're committed to doing things the wrong way, because doing things the right way involves a type of change that is both very uncomfortable and presents a type of uncertainty that perhaps you're not comfortable with. So what happens at the end of the day is that a lot of our universities are pumping out all these graduates who have debt up to their eyeballs, who never learned how to create a job for anybody. All they know how to do is hunt for a job and find some white man that will hire them and pay them just enough money so that they can barely survive. And if you are barely surviving, then you can't elevate other people because you can't even elevate yourself. How in the hell am I going to help thousands of people get jobs when I can barely keep a damn job myself? Seriously, I mean, really, if I'm struggling and I'm barely making it, I can't lift nobody else. The first step I got to apply in order for me to lift somebody else is I got to get Boyce up out the water. So if Boyce was drowning, just be clear. Some of y'all, give me a yes in the chat. Give me a yes in the chat if talking to me every morning you feel has elevated you in some way. Give me a yes if you feel like our conversations have benefited you and you're wealthier, you're doing things better, you see things better. Give me a yes in the. Okay, so think about this. So do you really think that I would be able to be out here trying to elevate you if I can't even pay the bills? If I'm barely getting by, if I'm struggling and I can barely make it, I gotta impress my boss. I'm sorry, I gotta go, y'all. My boss called and he told me that he saw me on the internets and I'm in trouble now. I got to go, y'all. I can't do that, right? So the first step, see, what you got to understand about wealth is this: wealth is built on this idea that a lot of us haven't conceptualized. Nobody taught you this. When corporations build wealth, like Nvidia became one of the first $3 trillion companies. I think it is the first $3 trillion company. They built trillions in wealth, and in order to build wealth, what you got to understand, you got to have one simple thing that most people don't have. Now, you ready? Write this down. Write this down. This is important. You have to have a surplus. You got to have excess. And what does that mean? Excess, it's easy. It's like a profit. You have to, it's like the amount of money you make has to be higher than the amount of money you spend. Your assets have to exceed your liabilities. You have to have a surplus. In order for Amazon to be worth a trillion or two or whatever, they had to have a surplus. If they'd never gotten a surplus, if their revenue had never exceeded their expenses, then they couldn't be a multi-trillion-dollar company. It would be very hard for them to do that. And so if you think about this process, think about how many people you know where, because we're trained to go, like chase these jobs and that's it. We don't see anything beyond the job. How many people do you know where their income is here and their expenses are here? So their revenue, what they're bringing in is here and what they're spending is here. Well, they have no surplus. And when you have no surplus, you're barely keeping your head above water. If your income, if your revenue flinches down and goes down 10%, then you start drowning. You start going into debt in order to survive and maintain. That's what a lot of Americans are doing. This is a consistent, a little sneaky trick of capitalism. This is being done to all of America, not just black people. But we just fall for it the worst because we have the lowest capital base when we're born. We have the worst economic culture. That's why it hits us hardest. But believe me, we have pneumonia, but white people definitely have a cold. So this is not just done for us. This is done for anybody that's exploited in a capitalist system. So what I'm saying to you is that in order for us to elevate and to build this wealth and build this power and to become whatever we claim that we want to be, we're going to have a class of black people who can somehow find their way to a surplus. You can't, if you have a beach and everybody's drowning at the damn beach, somebody's got to learn how to be a good swimmer so you can be the lifeguard for all the people that are in the ocean drowning right now. But if I'm down here drowning with you, I don't have the ability to save you. I don't even know I'm trying to keep myself alive. I'm so busy with strugglenomics that I can't vibrate to the level of powernomics. Do you understand? And this is what consciousness goes back to. I always talk about this financial consciousness class. I'm actually excited about this because I've never taught a financial consciousness class before. And I don't even halfway know exactly what all the material is going to be, but consciousness is Partly connected to what frequency you can vibrate on. Consciousness is about levels. It's about levels. So look, if you have a culture that is always encouraging you to vibrate on the lowest spiritual level, then you will never have the consciousness to elevate. You'll never have a surplus. If you are encouraged constantly by the culture to vibrate on the lowest economic level, the struggle level, then you'll never vibrate on the prosperity level. You'll never vibrate on the level where you can actually help other people. If you're vibrating constantly on the scarcity level, then you will never be at the abundance level. The abundance level is where you say, okay, I'm good now. I got what I need. My people are good. My family's good. My money's good. Let me go see if I can help him and her and her and him and her. Right? Let me develop a system where I can create a school where I can educate thousands of kids. Maybe let me start a business where I can create a few dozen jobs so that other people can win too as I win. And this is a mindset, people. This is what I'm saying. This is a mindset. So the whole like go to school, get a job framework that we've been taught, that's not built for any level of higher vibration. That's not built on there's nothing. Think about this. Look at how many people we look at and we say, oh, that's a really successful black person, but that person is doing nothing for anyone but themselves. They're not capable of doing anything for anybody but themselves. So I'm not saying that they're not successful. I'm not saying that getting a good job and doing well for yourself is not admirable. It is, but there's another level to this thing. There's another frequency you can vibrate on. And that's, the Jeff Bezos frequency. Jeff Bezos didn't just do well for himself. He created a million jobs with Amazon. And here's the thing. When you talk about, let's circle back to HBCUs and who's funding them and all this other stuff. Well, if you look at most institutions, the people who write the checks that are big enough to really make those institutions financially strong, they are not employees most of the time. They are wealth builders. They are empire builders. They have built companies. Jensen Huang just went back to Taiwan and he celebrated like a superhero. He runs NVIDIA, and I own NVIDIA stock. So me and my wife made $100,000 just from participating in that company. So I like the guy. He goes back to Taiwan, and if you look at the history of NVIDIA, I will say this. I bet you that if Jensen Huang had been African American, NVIDIA would not exist. If Jensen Huang had been an African American graduating from a white university or an HBCU, NVIDIA wouldn't exist. You know why NVIDIA wouldn't exist? Because Jensen Huang would be somebody's superstar employee. Jensen Huang would be somebody's HNIC making $250,000 a year because he's the best computer programmer on the team. He's driving a Ferrari, living in a nice white neighborhood, and he thinks he's the king of the damn hill. So in that parallel universe where Jensen Huang is an African American male, he's not the guy running a $3 trillion company. He's the guy that makes $250,000 a year who's still trying to pay off his fucking student loans. That's what Jensen Huang becomes when he becomes black. So what I need you to be able to see from a consciousness standpoint is how much wealth you kill because we kill dreams before they are even born. We don't even give the dream a chance to be born. We don't even encourage our young kids to start at the top and work their way down. We tell them to start at the bottom and work their way up because everybody started at the bottom. Now we here. I don't want to start at the bottom and get there. I'm starting at the top, damn it. I want what the white man got. I want what the power brokers have. I want what he's got over there. I don't want the Negro package. I'm not settling for the Negro success agenda. I want the real success. I want the real power. And so what we get is we get things that are so artificial. We don't get real power. We get proximity to power. You get close to people with power. So you think that you have power because you're close to it. You don't have any power. We get the illusion of power. We get rappers rapping about power. They ain't got no real power. Who's got the real power in hip hop? It's the people who's running these damn record labels. They have the power, not the loudmouth rapper. So what I'm saying to you is at the end of the day, we've got to understand what power looks like, and we have to raise children to position them to pursue power. So I want to raise a bunch of little damn CEOs. I want to raise some little wealth builders that are already thinking at a high level systematic framework. I want to see those kids who might still go to college. They might still go to Howard and other great institutions. There's nothing wrong with that, but they're going to come in and they're not going to be They're not just going to be the guy who takes classes in the business school hoping he can get a job at Goldman Sachs. He's going to be the guy taking classes in business school, preparing to create a black version of a Goldman Sachs. Sharif Abdul Malik, who runs a company called We Buy Black. We Buy Black is a multi-million dollar company. He's a graduate from Howard University. And one thing Sharif told me, I love Sharif, by the way. He's a great guy. He's a responsible, intelligent black man. I think he's also Muslim. I don't know if it's Nation of Islam or something else, but he's very disciplined. He's been married since he was probably 23, 24 years old, and he's just a super smart guy, and he's really done amazing things. His company's worth millions of dollars. I remember him telling me that he was in I think he was studying social work at Howard, and he was building his business, trying to build this company that he has now that's worth millions of dollars. And he went to the business school to because he's thinking if I go to the business school, they can teach me more about running my business. And he said that one of his challenges, his critiques of the business school was he said, "Man, it seemed like everybody over here was learning how to work for a business." They were all being prepared to work for other people. And I didn't want to work for anybody. I was trying to prepare to get employees and to build my and raise capital. That's what he was thinking about. So he was vibrating on the owner frequency. And he felt, at least based on his experience, that most of the students were being trained to vibrate on the employee frequency. And what you got to understand is that in America, in the way capitalism works, employees don't have power in this country. I'm not saying that it's bad to become one. I'm not shaming anybody who does that. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying this. Number one, if you ever want to have real power, you got to produce people that want to actually accumulate power, which is going to require risk taking, sacrifice, and discipline, which are three things that are not really encouraged in the culture. Number two, if you are still an employee, which is perfectly fine, you must still understand the fundamentals of financial security and institution building. So, just the same way Howard University is an institution and our HBCUs are institutions that still have tremendous value, but some of that value has been a little bit diluted. You also have other institutions that have been deliberately disrupted in the Black community, and that institution is called the family. The family is just as important of an institution as that company that you work for or that job that you have or whatever. The family is a critically important institution for at least one reason. When you have a family unit, you are combining resources. You are getting closer to achieving what we talked about earlier, that surplus, where your revenue exceeds your expenses. You're bringing in more than you're putting out. That's it. You're not operating on the struggle level. You're operating on the abundance level, where you then have the ability to create space and structure and protection for other people. So when you're talking about the family, the other investments I've talked to you guys about extensively are things investing in things like relationship management. So you know how to get along with your wife or get along with your husband instead of doing what everybody else does and getting a divorce after 2 weeks. Because I know that my wife is my teammate, and I know that with my wife as my teammate, we can achieve an abundance where we then have the surplus required to be able to create structure and stability for the children. Because when you break something up and everybody's scrambling, then everybody ends up broke. The statistics all show this. The data shows this. So don't just think that institution building and the mandate to build strong institutions belongs to people that run Howard University. They got a big job to do, and I have no disrespect for them, but I think they need to do things better. The responsibility is also on you. And also, again, whether you go to the ownership class or the employee class, the reality is that in America, if you want to get ahead financially, you got to own something. You got to own something. Do you own shares of stock? You got a job, okay? How much are you investing in shares of stock? And are you investing as much in owning stock as you're investing in owning a car? Are you investing as much in owning stock or real estate as you are in in investing in going out to eat or buying new clothes? So really, at the end of the day, what I'm really saying to you is that whatever level you're on, ownership is connected to control. Ownership is power. We have no power because we have no ownership. So everybody should be owning something. In fact, on Monday morning, you got a couple extra dollars, go own your butt some shares of stock and do it aggressively. Approach it as if your life depended on it because it does. Because when you are in the middle of economic desperation and financial despair and economic pain, terrible things happen. Bad things happen. That's all I got to say. I don't have anything else to say. I'm going to stop for today. I hope that this was helpful to you. I hope that you benefited from this discussion. And again, if I offended anybody, then, I apologize for that. It's okay. I don't know all the answers because God is not through with me yet. And I did not mean to offend those at HBCUs or who graduated from HBCUs. Everything's nuanced. There's bad and there's good everywhere. So this is not an absolute statement, but it is one where I hope that we can at least all agree that work needs to be done and we're not where we need to get to. And the only way we can get to a new outcome is if we approach things with new ideas. What are the new ideas we're going to embrace going forward? I think a good place to start would be to take concepts like powernomics and people like Dr. Claude Anderson and start celebrating them as much as you celebrate the damn Diddies. Diddy ain't done nothing for you except caused you a bunch of problems, done a bunch of yapping and all kinds of other nonsense. It's time for us to also celebrate the grown men in our community, not just the Peter Pans. So that's my 2 cents. That's all I got to say. All right, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. If you want to get a copy of my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, or our financial flashcards for kids, you can go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. Second of all, if you want to get invited to our economic elevation Money in the Morning sessions, it's totally free. You can just text the word morning to the number 87948. So text morning to the number 87948 and I'll invite you. Last but not least, you may or may not know, but I have a couple of podcasts on Spotify. So if you go to Spotify and look up my name, I have a podcast called The Dr. Boyce Breakdown where I cover pretty much everything. And then I have Dr. Boyce Daily Stock Markets where I give you daily updates on what's going on in the stock market. And then my wife and I do a podcast called Pillow Talk. So we just do a lot of talking, a lot of teaching, and it's a lot of fun. So love you guys. I'll see you all tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day working out. You just don't feel right when you don't do what you're supposed to do, and so I have to have that confession that I'm feeling a little bit like, and by the way, just a reminder, for today, we're going to do tonight at I want to say 8 o'clock. We're meeting for the Prime program. So if you have an interest in stock options and learning how to make money selling stock options, it's a great way to make extra cash. Make sure you're on the text list. I'll send you guys a link where you can test out Prime for $1. And it's kind of a limited thing we're doing in the Black Business School. So you can try it out the first month for just $1 and see if you like it. And feel free to give that a try. Make sure you're on the text list, though, and I can send you the link. To get on the text list, text the word morning to 87948. If you text morning to 87948, you'll not only get access to this free training every morning, this private Zoom, but also you'll get the special offers from the Black Business School if you want to elevate your economics in a meaningful way in terms of digging into some of these skills and essential skills that I believe that actually will surprise you in terms of you'd be amazed at how money is much more abundant when you kind of have a Swiss Army knife of skill sets that you can lean on. Like when you have a lot of different ways to make money, money tends to be more apparent, more abundant. It tends to appear in your life a lot more. Whereas when you have limited skill set, when you haven't studied it and you haven't learned some of these things, which are really techniques that I could show to a child, you end up, thinking that it's hard to get money, and it is hard to get money if you don't know where money is and you don't know what people are doing to obtain it. And so anyway, if you come into class, I think you're going to be super impressed. We got some students in there that literally are making $3,000 to $5,000 a week or more. And I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. I'm not here to talk about MLMs and what's the other one that people do, blessing looms and all that. This is not like that. This is not one of those stupid things. I have a PhD in this stuff, so I can't run around presenting these goofy ideas that I see on the internet. This is something that actually works. It involves trading and selling stock options. And it's not, and I use the word trading very lightly because I'm not really into trading like that, because unfortunately trading is a type of, it can devolve into a type of gambling. And so a lot of people go into trading and then they're surprised because the amount of money that they put in is more than the amount of money they pull out. And that's because trading isn't designed for you to really make a profit. But selling stock options is very easy for you to actually generate income, because what you're doing is you're selling the rights to your securities. And there's a massive market for this because there's so many people out there that want to speculate, they want to gamble. So it's no different from the way casinos will sell risk to people that want to go to Vegas and lose money. So anyway, feel free to take a look. If you get on the text list, I will send you all a link. Just text the word morning to 87948 and I'll invite you. You can come in and see it for yourself. And I know it's going to blow your mind. So many people in Prime are super happy and excited, and I know I get excited because that's how I actually make my money. Believe it or not, I don't. I used to do the other stuff, but not anymore. All right. So anyway, let me hop in and let me talk to you guys about the topic for today that I wanted to drill into. And before I do that, though, I want to say hello to everyone that's here. I know hundreds of you pop in every single morning, so I'd be remiss not to greet you. Errol Semengal, good to see you. Errol from Pompano Beach. Antoinette, good to see you. Good morning, Antoinette. Althea Garvey, Maryland. Good morning. Good morning, Jonathan McLennan. Good morning, Edward Samuels and Sharon and Shaniqua. I see Shaniqua Hutchinson, Winston Butler. Who else? Darren Cyprian. Let's see, Landers Jones, Deanna Hodges. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Donnie Redmond. Okay, so let's hop in and let's get started here. So, what I want to talk to you about today is overspending, and one of the things that people don't know is that there's a lot of research done on the psychology of overspending. In fact, that part of the psychology is part of the reason that in the Black Business School, my wife and I, who's a therapist, we realized we need a Black financial therapy department because a lot of these scientific techniques are used extensively on the Black community to extract lots of wealth from us. And it doesn't, now mind you, it doesn't mean that it's all evil and horrible and sinister. It just kind of means that an awareness. When you're aware, you're less likely to kind of be sucked in by some of these little tricks. And if you study how products are sold to the Black community, and if you study the Black community, period, you'll notice that Black people, we tend to consume more media than anyone else. There are very, very few groups. There's no ethnic group, I don't think, in America that watches more television or does more internet, like social media, than we do. And what media kind of does, unfortunately, is it lowers your consciousness level. It lowers your awareness level. It reduces your critical thinking skill. So effectively, when they get you in that zombie state, it's very easy for them to offer you things and sell you things, especially things that are addictive. Like sex can become very addictive. So sex always sells. Gambling. We talked about gambling yesterday. Gambling is sold extensively throughout sports now. So you're in the middle of the Cowboys game or whatever, and you get all excited and pumped up watching your favorite team, and then this commercial comes on, and they will present a Black person typically. Give me a yes if you notice this. So give me a yes. Has anybody noticed that most of the sports gambling ads feature a Black man? How many of y'all notice that? Give me a yes if you notice. Give me some names. Was it Kevin Hart? I saw one with Kevin Hart. I saw another one with Jamie Foxx. I saw JB Smoove. I think it's Smooth with a V. Did I miss any names? Are there any names that out there that I forgot about? And isn't that interesting? Queen Latifah was in one. I didn't know that. Yeah, isn't that interesting though? Kevin Garnett. Wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, I just wonder because I don't see that as many ads with white guys. I just don't. Maybe they're only targeting me with the Black people ads, but literally most of the ads for sports books and sports betting feature a Black guy, and a lot of that. And if you also notice, if you watch ESPN, there's sort of this overwhelming number of Black males that are even doing commentary on the sports networks. TNT and all that. It's like a bunch of Black dudes. And what someone said to me, and again, I don't know how true this is or not, but he works for ESPN. I have a friend that works for ESPN who told me, and he's a commentator, a very prominent commentator, or maybe it's Fox Sports. I get them mixed. I don't watch any of them, to be honest with you. And he said that what they actually were thinking years ago, like I'm talking about like 10, 12 years ago, was they said, wait, Black male unemployment is higher than any other group. So there's millions of Black men sitting at home with nowhere to go. They don't have jobs. So we're going to so we can have men. If we have Black men on TV, then these Black men are going to become part of our primary audience. And if you watch a lot of the sports shows, they cater a lot of it to Black male culture. And I get it. I understand the culture. Like because I'm part of I love sports. I can sit and talk about the teams and all that with you all day long. But at the same time, though, there's a point where I turn the TV off because I got to go handle my business. I'm not trying to go and be overly obsessed with whether or not Jerry Jones wins the Super Bowl, because Jerry Jones is not going to send me or my family any money if he wins the Super Bowl. I'm not going to get a check if the Cowboys win again. So I'll watch and I'll enjoy it, but then I realize I've got a bigger game to play, and the bigger, more important game is called the game of life. And so that's where I'm trying to win the Super Bowl. I don't really care that much if the Cowboys win or whatever. And so one thing that's interesting though is that with sports being one of those distractions that minimizes our consciousness level and keeps us investing in others more than we invest in ourselves. I never forget this story. This is a true story. I got invited one time to speak at this university, and it was one of those small schools that you never heard of. If I said the name of the school, you wouldn't know, you wouldn't even know this school. And I spoke to they had me because I was their black speaker, they had me speak to their black students. Most of their black students were athletes. They pretty much primarily only recruited black students to play sports. So the three guys I was sitting and talking to, they were all on the football team and we were just sitting at the tables, like me and I think three guys. And there was a young black woman who was my tour guide who was showing me around the campus, who was sitting to the side as I was talking to these guys, and we're having guy talk, and I'm just getting to know them and trying to find out what they're interested in and all that. Well, all they did was they kept talking about sports, right? And that's cool. Like I was chopping it up with them too, and I was really fascinated by how these young men, I think, oh, maybe one, one was a junior, one was a sophomore, one was a senior, something like that. I was really fascinated by the way the conversation flowed. It was literally like a tennis match. Like one guy would hit the ball to the other one hit the ball back. So it's like, no, the Giants gonna kill the Cowboys. Well, no, the Cowboys, they don't have the offensive line. Well, the Giants just signed so and so to 2.5 million. They didn't give him 2.5 million. They gave him 7 million. No, no, but they're gonna trade so and so. Like they were really not just talking about which team is better, my team will beat your team. They were talking about the specifics of the business of sports. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like they were talking about contract extensions and the options to extend contracts and what different teams need and who they're going to draft next year and the trades they made to up their stock in the next draft. Just all these really specific nuanced things that you really get from watching hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of Sports Center, right? Are you following me? Do you know what I'm saying? Do you understand why I was really intrigued by this? Like I was really, like they sounded like scientists and they were with this analysis. And so I was like, okay. Now, mind you, first off, I find it interesting that when a person puts that much energy and effort understanding something that is not going to put a nickel in their pocket. I mean, I get it though. I get it. We love what we love. I could talk to you about. I was just watching the NCAA track and field championships. I can tell you all about the great sprinters at Florida and LSU and everywhere. Like I follow that and I'm interested. I'm interested in the Olympics. I'm wondering if Fred Curley can beat Christian Coleman and like and Noah Lyles is if he's gonna get 2 gold medals. I'm watching these things but there's a point where I have to detach because I got things to do, right? And I also um kind of try to make sure I remember like this is not your sport. Like you're not like you don't get too happy or too sad when somebody wins because this has nothing to do with your real life. And I remember listening to these guys just really going back and forth about the NFL and really talking like you would have thought these guys were sports agents. You would have thought that these guys were team owners. You would have thought that they had an investment stake in these teams. You would have thought they were on the roster. And so what I did was I said, okay, well, I said, well, you guys know, I said, you know what you ought to do? You ought to like start a YouTube channel and just talk about sports. I said, that there's guys out here that make a lot of money doing that kind of stuff if you can do it. And I like there's a guy named Pat McAfee or something who basically got together with the guys and would talk sports on YouTube, and he got $200 million contract or something with ESPN. So I was like, yeah, this is something you guys should do. And I said, do you know how people make money on YouTube? And they said, no, how do they make money on YouTube? I said, okay, well, you get paid like for every 1,000 viewers that you have. That's how the ad network works. So I think I said something like, so let's say that you have 10,000 viewers and you're gonna make $5 for every 1,000 viewers on your episode. So then you get 10,000 viewers. So the amount of money you would make would be 10 times five. So how much money would that be? I think I just asked it. And I was like, so how much money would you make? And there was like complete silence. Like no one said a word. And I said, "Oh, well, maybe I said it wrong." Like, I was sitting there thinking, okay, maybe I missed, maybe I didn't say it loud enough. Maybe they're just shy. They're football players. I don't think these football players are typically not shy. They're very assertive. So I said, okay, so let's look at another example. Let's say that you do an episode on your show and you get in the course of a month, you have 100,000 viewers. So you make $5 per viewer. So how much money would you get if it's five times 100, right? You get $5 per thousand. You have it 100,000. So five times 100 is the amount of income you would make that month. How much money is that? And it was really fascinating to me that nobody answered the question. There was just complete silence. And I just was like stunned. My brain stopped working because I just thought I was in the Twilight Zone. I said, "This is a practical joke, right? This is this what where are we? This is a college campus, right?" And I didn't. It's not to insult the guys or anything like that, but I sat and I was like, "Wait a minute!" But they were just breaking down in scientific fashion like the offensive line of the New York Giants, who was going to get traded, what the salary cap was, and what their contract extensions look like, and who's going to get picked in the next. Like they were telling me things. All this, I mean, like literally, they were football scientists who could not tell me what five times 100 was, and they were in college. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm shifting, my butt shifting in my seat. I'm like thinking, how you gonna make money when you can't count? Like and I'm not being mean. I hope I don't sound like I'm. If I sound like I'm being mean, please forgive me. I'm not trying to look. I'm not looking down on those guys. I felt sorry for them. I was like, what happened here? What's going on? And so I remember after it was over, I had to go to the airport, and I was talking to the young lady that was with me, that was giving me the tour, and I said, did you hear that conversation? And she goes, yeah, I heard it. And I said, was my question not clear? She said, no, it was clear. She said, I was gonna blurt out the answer, but I knew that wasn't my conversation. Because she comes from that tradition like where when men are talking, that's when men are talking. When women are talking, men need to butt out, and maybe when men are talking, we need to talk to each other. We don't always need, so she was kind of just letting us have our space as men. And but she said I wanted to answer the question. It was 500. So what I really think about is I pray for like us and think about our kids. And I think that we don't understand the urgency that exists when you have millions of kids that can't tell you what, you know, 20 plus 10 is. Or if they do a business deal and they're going to get 10% of the profit, and you say, okay, if you make $1,000 and you get 10% of $1,000, how much money do you get? And then they guess, and then their answer is like $322. Like just something that doesn't even show like the basic understanding of mathematical fundamentals. And so this goes back to that point I've always made. I don't trust white people to educate black children. I just don't. I don't hate white people. When I talk like that, I know people get scared of me, and I don't care because I'm not a person to be afraid of, but at the same time, I'm not a person to be played with. You're not going to play with me with a bunch of nonsense and somehow convince me that these kids who are unloved and uneducated are going to have a chance of success in the world. Because what happens is that when you deny our children a proper education and deny our children an economic education, they get to the point where, like everyone else in America, they get to the point where they're 25 and up and they need money. And then there's no more stressful position you can be in than when you need something and you don't know how to acquire it. It's like being in the woods and you need food and you don't know how to hunt, you don't know how to fish, you don't know how to grow nothing. And so the blame, if you want to blame someone, the blame is who put you out in the woods and gave you no survival skills. Well, maybe your parents did that. Maybe they handed you over to someone who promised to give you survival skills who did not do the job. Maybe we're passing the ball to somebody who plans to throw the ball out of bounds, so to speak. Maybe we're handing our children over to someone who's going to molest their minds and psychologically abuse them and lie to them and leave them severely unprepared for the world. I mean, this is what's going on. This is what you're seeing in the world. And so I just personally think, I had I shared a video on my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance, and I have a backup at Dr. Boyce Money. My Instagram, my big one got taken down because I say things about white people, and that makes people nervous. So I had 600,000 people, and they're gone. So if you're one of the 600,000 from before, you can follow me at Dr. Boyce Finance and Dr. Boyce Money as a backup, just so in case they eliminate me. And I had a dream that I was talking to the I put up a video about Jaylen Brown, who plays for the Boston Celtics. Jaylen is about to go to the NBA Finals, and I talked to Jaylen Brown's brother via text recently, but Jaylen's very busy, so obviously because he's about to play in the NBA Finals, so we haven't spoken in the past few days. But anyway, I put up this video of Jaylen Brown, and I want to mention Jaylen because I think it's very important to know what a black man looks like. So Jaylen Brown, in his history, he didn't only sign the highest NBA contract in the history of the league, and he's not just a superstar that's about to play in the NBA Finals. Jaylen Brown, from what I understand, is an absolute, complete, total genius. You've got to go to my Instagram. My Instagram is Dr. Boyce Finance. That's where I put the video. He is one of the most brilliant young athletes I've seen. He reminds me of Dr. Myron Rolle, who's another friend of mine who was so brilliant that he chose not to go right to the NFL because he wanted to go and pursue a Rhodes Scholarship or something. He's now a doctor at Harvard, from what I understand. And what's interesting is in the case of Dr. Roll, the NFL started to question his commitment to sports because he was so smart. Somehow they believe that a black man who's intelligent cannot also be athletic. That if you're committed to your academic achievement and your intellectual development, then that means you're not dumb enough or zombified enough to follow our orders and our instructions, right? That's what their false belief was, but it wasn't true. Dr. Roll went to the NFL and had a great career after he took care of himself. He was B1 in the sense that, or maybe it's maybe B1 or at least me one, meaning that he said, I'm more important than your little NFL team. My future, my family is more important than whatever you got going on with this organization. So I'm going to come and work with you, but I'm also going to make sure that I work for myself and work for my family first. So now Dr. Roll has a wife and some beautiful children. He's a Harvard educated doctor. He's going to have a great career beyond football. And I just think that's quite admirable. Well, Jaylen Brown reminds me of Dr. Roll. Jaylen Brown, his whole life has been this genius straight A student who's, the guy who joins the chess club and took graduate level classes when he went to college. And I just was so inspired by what I saw. I said, this is what a black man looks like. It reminds me of myself at that age. Just I wasn't as athletic as him. I love sports probably as much as he did, but I wasn't 6 foot whatever. I was too short to play basketball, but if I was tall enough, I probably would have been playing for the Celtics too. But the point of the matter is to say that this was the kind of thing that I think really exemplifies the excellence that our children are capable of. Most of the men and women I know who play sports at a high level are very disciplined, hardworking people. They're strategic, they're intelligent. They have more discipline than most regular people because it's very hard to play sports at a high level, at a college or professional level. If you've ever seen the day-to-day workout routine of a college athlete, you would know these are not amateurs, these are professionals. And that's why for many, many years I've always advocated that the athletes be paid like professionals. Now universities are being forced to pay them, and they should have been paying them 50 years ago. So to me, when I see Jaylen Brown, I don't see an exception. I see a guy who represents which should be the rule. Because if our young men spent as much energy and as much time on their intellectual development as we spend on our athletic development, we will be the intellectual leaders of the entire freaking earth. Give me a yes if you agree with this. Let me know if you understand the correlation here. I need you to understand the connection. You're getting up every day at 6 a.m., busting your butt, working your ass off, getting pushed to your absolute limits. And for some reason, somebody told you that you're not supposed to also do that in everything that you do. You're supposed to be if you're a superstar on the court, you should be a superstar in the classroom. You should be a superstar on the street. You should be a superstar in everything you do. If you're a hardworking man in your sport, how can you claim to be super hardworking over here, but you become a lazy, backward ass Negro over there? That doesn't make any sense. That's brainwashing. And I had a hard conversation like that. I had a student in my class when I was teaching at Syracuse who was an all Big East wide receiver, and it was embarrassing. The class was full of white people, and he's the only black guy, and he was getting the lowest score in every test. And so I sat and talked to him. And I said, "Man, this is embarrassing, dude. Like I see you. I see how good you are. I see how hard you work. You're the only person in the classroom who can go into a stadium with 50,000 people and play on national TV and catch passes and score touchdowns and all this other stuff. But yet somehow you think you can't pass these a finance test? Like these tests are easy compared to what you have to do. You should be great at everything you do. Greatness should be in your blood. Greatness should be part of your culture. I was talking to him about culture. I was talking to him about mindset. I was saying, look, if you're going to be great, if you're going to be a great man, be a great man. Just be great at everything. Just all you got to, I'm not asking to change a single thing about who you are. I'm not asking to go from being the cool guy to being the nerd. No, I'm just asking you, if you're going to be great, be great. If that's what you are, then be it. Stop turning your greatness off when it comes time for you to invest in your future, but then somehow you become great when it's time for white people to cheer you on the football field. These people don't give a damn about you. They don't care if you go out there and get brain damage or you get paralyzed. They just want to cheer because they like to see a Negro run and jump and catch balls. That's what they like to see. So what I'm saying is the reason I put this video of Jaylen Brown up. And I was so inspired. I said, man, I'm so proud of this dude. This is impressive. And then he's also the guy. He also actually, when he got his contract, they said, well, what are you going to do with the money? He said, I want to build a Black Wall Street. I said, Lord, this is awesome. This is so great. And it's so, but even my excitement is depressing because everybody should be doing this. Like there should be 1,000 athletes saying the same thing. Like it's weird. We live in the twilight zone because it's very weird that we have like just one or two that it's very rare to find somebody who is at the heights of society who actually remembers where the hell they came from and who ain't scared to invest in and support their own people in their own community and build their own families. Do you understand how deep the brainwashing has to be for you to think that any of that all makes sense? It doesn't make any sense. So with Jaylen Brown, I was very proud of him. And it's really weird because I think I went to sleep thinking about that video. And in my dream, I was talking to him and some other people in the Boston Celtics, like extensively about this stuff, like about economic consciousness and about this is how weird I am. I think about this so much, I dream about it. And we were having this conversation, and it felt so good because I'm like, finally, we're going where we need to go. And because what we really need long term is we need infrastructure. I really believe one game changer for the black community would be if you had some serious people get together and raise a few $1 billion to build very simple little schools all around the country, just like the Jewish people have Hebrew school. We need black people school. We need black economic school. We need powernomics training, whatever you want to call it. And this was the vision I laid out to Kanye West. He did not see it. He's in another place. Um, but this is something that is easy to do. It's been done before by other communities that wanted to take self-accountability, and it is something that would make a massive difference that would last for the next 500 years. If you went to every city and just said, okay, we're going to put up, you know, we're going to have $1 million budget per city, and we're going to create some little school, and we're going to focus specifically on powernomics principles or basic economic principles, and we're going to incentivize the people in the community to send their kids here to be educated. We're going to hire black educators who really love the kids, and then we can supplement it with other aspects of what it means to live a wealthy life, health, wealth, and relationships. We've talked about that, and we're just going to make sure that they're educated with love. See, y'all don't understand that love is $1 trillion commodity right there. Love is $1 trillion commodity. Black love is $1 trillion commodity. And what do I mean by that? Well, when your children go to school in an environment where nobody loves them, that white lady from the suburbs, she's only there for a paycheck. Except for a few exceptions. There's some good people out here. I'm not saying that all white people are bad. I don't get into all that. But literally, the kids are being devoid of love. They're not loved in these systems. The school systems are built just like little penitentiaries. They're penitentiaries on training wheels. And so, because there's no love, the children don't connect to the teachers. The educational process does not work. And so, as because the educational process does not work, you have this young person who could have been anything who goes out into the world unprepared, uneducated, or miseducated, and literally all their potential is kind of thrown down the toilet. So if you take that same process of miseducating kids, leaving them uneducated, and putting them out into a world where that's very competitive from an economic standpoint, then what's going to happen is that you're literally losing trillions of dollars every generation from a loss of human capital. You can, according to financial models, value human capital or value a human being's economic potential based on various factors like education, work ethic, where they're focusing their energy, things like that. You can do that. So I can literally write down an equation for you right now. I'm not going to do it because there's no need to, but I could give you an equation that will tell you what a human being is worth from a purely economic standpoint. So when you educate, so this is what the reason I say black love is a $1 trillion commodity is because if you imagine another scenario, imagine if our children were educated with love. Imagine if every morning the kid wakes up and he's going to a space with black men and black women who really love him, who really are passionately committed to seeing him succeed, who really care if he ate breakfast that morning, who care if he's happy or sad, who care that he's having good relationships with the other children in school. That kid is going to grow up and he's going to reach his potential. He or she is going to be far more successful. That little black boy is going to grow up and become a great husband and father for some black woman instead of being one of these men that disappoints everybody, right? Again, not that you put that all on men. I don't want to get into that. But seriously, think about what happens when guys are not raised properly as children and not loved properly. Well, they grow up and they become a freaking nightmare for somebody. Like no accountability, no responsibility, making a bunch of babies, don't take care of them, not showing up for their family, not showing the children look up to them, but eventually they can't anymore because daddy's a drug addict or an alcoholic like my daddy was. And so ultimately at the end of the day, what I'm saying is that when you have love in the room, you're elevating the value, the economic value and economic potential of these children that are being raised in a pool of love, instead of having them raised in a nasty, toxic bathtub full of hate and disrespect and microaggressions and dysfunction. This is what I'm saying. So ultimately, everything comes back to love. And I would say that if we love our children, we will invest in our children. If we love ourselves, then we will invest in ourselves. The things that you love, you take care of. The things you don't love, you throw them out the window. You waste those things. So I would argue that the lack of self-love, the lack of love for each other, the lack of love for our children, the lack of love for progress and everything that we claim to believe in, that is what causes us to continue to do things wrong. So when I just to summarize on that point, when I saw that video on Jalen, I was super excited, and I said, "Man, this would be so great." Imagine if we had schools where all they did, like literally, do you know, simple ideas? I promise you, simple ideas will change everything with Black economics. If Jalen simply, let's say Jalen was an egomaniac who said, "I just want to create 1,000 schools where we're going to produce, 100,000 kids a year that are just replicas of me." That are going to do exactly what they're going to play basketball, but they're also going to be great at chess and mathematics and and the hardworking students and whatever else I believe in. Like literally, imagine if you had, 100 or several 100,000 black men who think just like Jalen Brown, who sought educational excellence, who were disciplined, who were hardworking, who still love sports. Remember, sports is cool. I like sports. I played every sport. It was fun. I wish I'd learned more about baseball. My father was a good baseball player, but he was never around, so he never taught me. But I think I would have been good at baseball. I would have been good at golf because golf, I wasn't tall, so maybe I needed a sport that didn't require me to be big and tall. But the point is to say that just simply taking your models of success and being able to mass produce them in almost like an industrialized framework, that is a pattern and a model that's been used by by countries to build powerful nations. The United States, the reason Hitler was so scared of the United States in World War II is because the United States has had some of the most amazing industrial capability of any country on the planet. They could just they if they want to make a bullet, they're not gonna just make one or two bullets. They're gonna make like a billion bullets. They're not just gonna make two or three really nice ships. They're gonna make like hundreds of ships because they've got a process, a system. Do you understand? So what we need is we need a system. We need to look at our best and brightest and our baddest and our boldest and our most extraordinary men, our most extraordinary women, and we need to build them just like you build a Tesla in a factory. Because they already do that with hip hop. There's a whole documentary called The Nigga Factory. They already build gangsters. They already build thugs. They already have a factory to build athletes. They have factories to build black kids that want to be comedians or whatever. That's why if you go to most schools and you ask the black boys, what do you want to be when you grow up? An overwhelming majority of them are going to say, I want to play in the NFL, the NBA, or I want to be a rapper. They are because there's a system. It's systematic. So the question becomes, given that you know that there are so many systems that are plotting to turn you left, how many systems do you have in place that are plotting to turn you right? Given that there's so much, remember, media is a system. That's why, if you think about the radio stations, when all the radio stations got together and said, we're going to play the same music everywhere in every city, that's when Lil Wayne and people like that become mega famous. And they're because everybody around the country is hearing the same songs. It's systematic. So what I'm saying to you is that those who have that position of power, who have those resources, I wouldn't put it all on Jalen. Jalen's in his 20s, I think. So that's a lot to put on you as a young guy. But those people that have access to capital should also have a way of thinking or advisors that can think in a systematic fashion so you can implement systems to counter the systems that are there to harm you. Remember, racism is systematic. Systematic racism is what really, really plagues you. It's not this specific one, it's not these one-off situations like, oh, I went to the grocery store and the white lady didn't want to give me my change. I don't give a damn about that. Who cares if they like you? Stop getting that's not racism. Systematic racism is when you're talking about the massive denial of opportunities, when you talk about massive economic theft that's occurred over multiple generations to the tune of $14 trillion. It's when you talk about entire systems designed around white supremacy, like the school system, the prison system, the economic system, system. So you got all these systems that are working against you. What systems do you have that are working in your favor? Or are you even, because remember, to think on a systematic level, you have to have a certain level of consciousness. A person who's sitting in the system can't always see the system. They can't see the system unless they elevate in terms of consciousness to rise up and look down and say, well, wait a minute, this is happening to me, but oh, it happened to millions of black boys. There was millions of black boys that wanted to put on medication and do all these other things. Do you understand? This is why consciousness is so important. I'll share the story, then I'm done talking about this topic. But I still remember when Snoop Dogg was talking to Tupac. And as you know, in case you don't know, Tupac got killed, and Tupac was right in the middle of his beef with Diddy and everybody else, and Bad Boy and Tupac was pretty committed to the beef, right? Tupac had been traumatized because he got shot in New York, and he's thinking somebody set him up, and it's kind of bad. So he's really mad at Snoop Dogg. He was mad at Snoop Dogg because Snoop Dogg had a different level of consciousness than Tupac. I hope I didn't offend anybody by saying this, but Snoop Dogg's consciousness was just different in my view because Snoop Dogg was like Tupac was like, I'm gonna kill him or F those dudes or whatever, right? My fofo, make sure all your kids don't grow. Like he's really in it. He's really in the moment. And Snoop is like, let's take a step back here and let's think about this. So to me, Snoop, so his approach was more like, this moment will pass. One day I want to be a grandfather or something. I want to be alive in the year 2010 and 2020 and get gray hair and whatever and do oldies concerts with Mick Jagger and stuff. Like I don't know if I really want my last experience on this earth to be like 1996, right? So what was interesting was Pac got really, really mad at Snoop because from what I understand, I'm not an expert on this. So anybody who's a hip hop head, if I'm wrong about something, just let's not, I don't want to debate that all day. And so Snoop goes to New York, and they asked him on the radio. They said, "How do you feel about Puffy and everybody else?" Because he was Puffy back then. He changed his name every like once a week. And he was like, "Man, I'm cool with all of them. I like all them dudes, man. They all right." So Snoop was trying to like be friends with people and just say, "Look, I'm not trying to escalate this conflict. I don't really want this to get out of hand." Whereas Tupac was like, no, that's the enemy. And remember, in his song, "Hit 'Em Up," one of the greatest diss songs of all time, he says something like something that was really interesting to me, where he says, um, F Bad Boy, F blah blah blah, as a whole record label and as a whole crew. And then he says, if you're down with Bad Boy, then F you too. So he's spraying a nuclear bomb, basically saying that not only am I talking about my enemy, but anybody who's even affiliated with my enemy is also my enemy. So by Snoop Dogg simply saying, and I promise you that there's a point to this. So by Snoop Dogg simply saying, look, I don't want to fight them. That's between y'all. That made Snoop into the enemy. And so what Snoop told as a story, which was interesting to me, that made me think that okay, this guy has a level of consciousness about him. And consciousness is vision. It's the ability to kind of see long term. It's the ability to see wide, to see the bigger picture, and not get caught up inside the trees. You can see the whole forest. Is so he says, yeah, yeah, me and Pac were talking, and Pac was saying, man, Death Row, I'm gonna say it like Snoop said it, so cover your ears if you don't like profanity. He said, Pac was like, we the motherfuckers, we the ones, we the sinners. They can't nobody mess with us, can't nobody mess, right? And what Snoop said was really interesting. He said, cuz, he said they make us everywhere. He said they make gangsters everywhere. And what he was talking about in my mind, and my maybe this was my interpretation, was he's talking about the systematic replication of a mindset, the systematic replication of a certain outcome, the mass industrialization of certain types of black males all throughout the country, so that um I could go to Seattle and I could find that guy in Seattle. I could go to Chicago and find the same guy in Chicago. I could go to New York and find the same guy in New York. I could go to Texas and find the same guy in Texas. And so to me, that is kind of what I end up seeing when you're talking about the outcomes with our kids, is that these are systems that are spitting out kind of the same person, the same outcome. When I can tell you a story about something that a black man did, or that a black woman did, and I say, does anybody know somebody who's like that? And everybody says, oh yeah, I know someone. Oh, I got a cousin like that. I got a sibling like that. Or when I say, how many of you have had a family member go to prison? Everybody raises their hand, because the prison, the mass incarceration, the systematic racism was very broadly done. It was systematically done like a machine. And so that industrialization, that systematic thinking, the consciousness required to even think as a system, is something that has been used to harm you. It's been used to harm you in a very, very terrible way. Even Joseph Stalin, who ran the Soviet Union, he said, one death is a tragedy. He said, but a million deaths, that's just a statistic. Like that, nobody cares about a million deaths, but everybody cares about one. If you hear one story about one person and that the suffering they went through, it makes you sad and it makes you cry. But if somebody says, "Oh yeah, a million people died," it's like, "Oh, well, okay." Right. So that was basically him having like a different type of consciousness. And this is the thing, right? So I don't want you to think the word consciousness is always good. Sometimes a heightened level of consciousness can actually be a terrible thing. Right? It's just like, oh yeah, yeah, we're just gonna kill 10,000 people over here, but we'll save 100,000 people over there, right? So don't ever assume that consciousness always means that you're a better person. Consciousness, it's just awareness. It's living in a certain dimension where you see things in a certain way. Just like going back to that original analogy, if I am driving on the road and I can only see the car in front of me and I can only see the freeway route to get to my destination, that's a level of consciousness. But if I get in an airplane or a helicopter, I rise to the third dimension. I can use height now, so I have an awareness that exceeds the people on the road. I now have an advantage over them. Do you understand? Let me know. Please let me know you're following this. I know I am going in a thousand directions I did not plan to go into, but I hope this makes sense. So because I have extra consciousness, I have awareness, which means I have an advantage because I have more information. I have more variables in my equation that I can use to make specific decisions. So what I would like for us to focus on and think about is how this consciousness can be used to your advantage. I think by being more conscious of of the way our children are being educated, it's gonna give us an advantage. I think being more conscious of the way our economics is being manipulated, that gives us an advantage. When I bring variables into the equation that maybe you didn't think about, that gives you an advantage. You can say, oh, well, the reason this is happening is because of this and this and this. It's not some mysterious thing that's coming from some parallel universe that you're not aware of. Oh, you've been there. You because you're conscious and you've traveled to those other dimensions to say, oh, this is what's really happening. And here's the other thing, though, when you learn the value of consciousness and you commit to being conscious, then you can then translate that consciousness to the development of systems and processes that can be implemented that allow you to use that consciousness to your advantage. Like when I know that being above the traffic allows me to see further down the road than being in the traffic, then what I do is I go build me a helicopter and I apply that knowledge. And now I'm in the helicopter and now I'm winning. Now there's no traffic. I can see further than everybody else. I have more information than everybody else. It's going to be harder for you to get me into a car accident if I'm in a fucking helicopter. And that's really what a conscious person does. A conscious person isn't necessarily always going to fight you because they done rose above the fight. They're on another vibration, another frequency. They don't even know that the fight's happening. And that's what happens. Think about it. Think about people you know who are just low vibrational people. They sitting around, they jealous, they petty, they mad. They're thinking in a scarcity mindset. They're mad at you about stuff that you don't even know happened. You're not even thinking about it. Wow, because you're focused on something bigger. Your vision is out there, whereas their vision is right here. because nobody ever taught them how to be conscious. People only taught them how to be petty, small-minded, and low vibration. So rise up, raise your consciousness. In fact, if you ever, I'm gonna tell you the truth. If I'm ever in a fight and I take a moment to close my eyes and meditate, I win the fight, not by winning the fight. I realize that I can win the fight by rising above the fight. And I even do that with my wife. Don't tell her I said this. But if my wife is really mad at me over something stupid, something simple, something petty, I'll literally close my eyes and say, will this matter in 5 years? And if the answer is no, do you know what I do? I let it go. I do. I just say, I just say, okay, yeah, all right, yeah, whatever you say. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's true. Because at that point, I'm not even talking about like voice is not really talking to you anymore. Like the voice from the future is looking at it saying, this is silly. So consciousness can be your asset in a multitude of ways. Financial consciousness will make you a financial genius. It will make you financially successful. But remember, consciousness can be applied to everything that you do. So this is why, I encourage you to consider that those people that believe in things like meditation and all that, that's really important because when you can really sort of understand what's going on, you can really position yourself in a way that's going to benefit you. So anyway, I totally flubbed this whole conversation. I told y'all I was going to talk about reasons why people overspend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read that list. I made a whole list. I didn't plan on talking about Jalen Brown and all that, but y'all know what it is. That's what I do in economic consciousness. I just do a stream of consciousness, and whatever comes to mind, I trust it, and then present it in a way that hopefully adds value to your thinking. But I am going to read this because I did make that promise. So I apologize for those of you that are sitting here like confused. And by the way, so quickly, just a reminder, tonight we are going to meet for the Prime program, which stands for Passive Recurring Income Machine, where we're going to talk about making money by selling stock options. It's a pretty cool way to make money. There are risks in all investing for sure, but a lot of people really enjoy it. So if you'd like to do a $1 trial, I'm going to send that link out right after we get done today. So make sure you're on the text list. Text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948, and you can try the program for $1 for the first month. And also that'll give you the chance to attend our session called Prime 101 next week, where we literally do a whole introduction. Now tonight I'm gonna do a Q&A. I'm gonna answer questions from the students that are already in the program, but those that are beginners, we're gonna do a Prime 101, and you get a chance to come in here. You come in for free or come in for $1. So text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948, and I'll send you that link. And also, I wanted to remind you, don't forget the All Black National Convention is happening October 25th through the 27th, and that's going to be in Lombard, Illinois, right outside Chicago. It is an amazing, amazing place, and the convention is an amazing experience. This is our ninth one, and so we're really excited about this. You know, it was a convention I created because I don't like other conventions typically. I mean, some of them I can enjoy, but the black ones, unfortunately, are a little bit too politically driven and they have too much corporate sponsorship. So I never really enjoyed going to conventions that were either controlled by a political party or controlled by corporations because I don't feel like that allows us to really solve our problems in a meaningful and authentic way. So we paid the bills for this thing, and it's really it's successful and exciting. I know you guys are going to love it. So feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com if you're interested. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. All right, so let me give you the list, and I'm going to come back to this tomorrow because I feel like I won't get a chance to really cover it as much as I want to. But let me give you five quick reasons why people tend to overspend. Okay, so the first reason, this is all based on research, what the academic research says. So if you have an issue with overspending and your money's leaving your pocket and you don't know why, let me give you some financial consciousness that will help you to at least know why you spent all your money. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means that you won't be confused and you won't sort of be rope-a-doped out of your resources. The first is emotional triggers and impulse buying. So according to a study by Kruger in 2016, people often overspend due to emotional triggers such as stress, sadness, or boredom. So retail therapy is pretty common. It's a common coping mechanism for negative emotions. So give me a yes if you've ever gone through that where you were feeling bored, stressed, or sad, and shopping just made you feel better. Let me know if you've gone through that. And the study was called The Influence of Emotions on Compulsive Buying, and it explored how emotional states can drive compulsive buying behaviors and the temporary relief it produces. So it's no different from being stressed out and wanting to have sex, or being stressed out and wanting to go hit the crack pipe or hit the liquor bottle, or just something that's going to release those endorphins and that dopamine is going to, and the thing about it though is that there are healthy ways to do that too. Like some people get stressed out and they go exercise, because you release endorphins when you exercise. Some people get stressed out and they take a nap or they meditate or they go do something that's not going to, cause them to lose their money or gain a bunch of weight or become a drug addict or catch an STD, right? So to me, everybody has coping mechanisms. I think it's a matter of finding coping mechanisms that are going to benefit you as opposed to those that harm you. Like for example, I would say being addicted to exercise is far more beneficial than being addicted to drugs or even being addicted to work, even though, being a workaholic comes with its ups and downs and its pluses and minuses. At least if you're addicted to work, at least you're going to be very productive as opposed to being addicted to alcohol or gambling or something like that. The second reason that people overspend is social pressure and social influence. Now, there's a study that was done by Bearden and Etzel in 1982. The study was called Social Influences on Consumer Behavior, the Impact of Reference Groups and Peer Pressure. And in this study, they basically found that social pressure and the desire to conform to group norms can lead individuals to make purchases they wouldn't have made otherwise, often resulting in overspending. This is one that I believe Black people have to be really careful about because for Black people, it's all, we talk a lot about being part of the culture, and there's a lot of, there seems to be just a lot of pressure to fit in. Like I have people that will criticize me and say, you don't fit in, you're not part of the culture, you don't relate, so and so doesn't relate to you, or these people don't relate to you. And they don't know I don't give a damn. I'm not trying to relate to anybody except for God and myself and the purpose, right? That's what I want to relate to. I want to relate to my wife. I want to relate to my kids. I don't want to relate to what's trendy on the internet. So no, I'm not interested in doing TikTok dances. I'm not trying to just do things because they're cool. And we are sort of the leaders of cool. Right, we are the leaders in terms of setting trends when it comes to fashion and style and slang, and so there's all this pressure, I think, to kind of fit in. Like you're not really Black, you're not gonna get invited to the barbecue, you're not really, that kind of thing. And I personally think that that's silly because unfortunately that can cause you, let's talk, if you talk specifically about the financial side, it can cause you to overspend on things that you don't really want. So social pressure is a big deal. I think social pressure really hits hard for people that don't know who they are or don't have high self-esteem. And I think that there's something about being black that impacts your self-esteem from birth. Like a lot of us are raised to believe that you're really nothing until white people acknowledge you. Let me know if you get what I'm saying. There are a lot of us who are trained to believe that if if the world and white folks don't validate you in some way, you're not as important as the people who have been validated by white folks. Look at how many of our so-called heroes are simply black people that white people put on TV. They're seriously, there are people that are seen as heroes in the black community, and I think about it, and I would say to my wife, I'd say, what would we think about this guy if some white guy had not chosen to put him on television? People love this lady or this person because they know who they are and they've heard their album or seen their TV show or saw them get a Grammy or an Oscar or a Pulitzer or something. But if you strip all that away, there's nothing left. There's nothing there. So it is that consciousness that exists within those who seek to kind of manage the black community and develop systems around managing the black community that causes them to really get to decide who our heroes are going to be, who we're going to look up to. If they could take any random person on the street, like a sexy red or something, boost her up, make her one of the most famous people in America, put a whole lot of money in her pocket, and there will be a segment of the black community that will look up to that person, that will say, "Oh, wow, you're my hero. I want to be like you when I grow up." Or you could take that same person. You could take it's Sexy Red as this rapper. You don't go look her up. It's gonna make you vomit. But anyway, they could take Sexy Red. Pay attention now. They could take her to any elementary school in the hood right now, and the kids would start screaming. They would be excited to see her in the gymnasium, and they wouldn't be excited if you say brought I don't know, the greatest black surgeon on the planet, right? Especially if it's somebody like Dr. Ben Carson who happens to be a Republican, like, oh, boo, you're bad, yeah. Or we don't know who you are, or you seem like a nerd, right? But so it's kind of interesting how that's done. Right? If you see it the way I see it, it's like, oh, I get it. Because you've invested billions of dollars, that's money. See, money controls all this, by the way. This is every time we talk, we're always having a financial conversation. I want you to know this because money is like the little demon kind of lurking in the background, this rubbing his hands like Birdman, just controlling everything that's happening in your mind, your body, your community, right? So they put billions of dollars into developing this infrastructure in this thing called media. And so they get their television signals in everybody's home, and then they say, okay, we're going to take this person, we're going to put them in everybody's house, and we're going to put them in everyone's consciousness, and this person's going to be the new it guy for the black community, and that's what they do. So anyway, so social pressure, I think, is one of those things that really harms us economically. And in fact, studies show that black people worship celebrities. So Nielsen, when they wrote their report on how to sell things to black people, they said it's easy, just put a celebrity in the ad, and black people will buy it. When I went to a party, I went to the NBA All-Star Weekend, and there was a party. I got invited by the guy who ran the Air Jordan brand, and me and my wife went in there, and it was really nice, really fancy, and they had all these really cool places you could grab food and stuff. And so I sat down. I mean, this was like good food. It's like I got like a little version of a steak dinner. So I sat down at this little place, and I was sitting next to this guy, and I knew he was important because he's like a real weird looking European guy. And I said, "Well, what do you do?" And he said, I created the Beats by Dre headphones. And I said, "Wow." I said, "You guys did a really great job with the marketing on that." And he said, "Thank you." And I guess he didn't care what I did, and I didn't care to tell him. But really, when I said you guys did a great job on the marketing, I was really thinking, wow, you really did a great job of manipulating black people's addiction to celebrities and the addiction to sort of fitting in and following the crowd. Because what you did was you took some pretty mediocre headphones and you ran a campaign where you had all their favorite celebrities wearing those headphones. So you used symbolism to really connect to the conscious and subconscious mind of mostly black people to basically say, if you have this symbol, this little Beats by Dre symbol in your ear with these headphones, you're gonna be similar to Serena. You're gonna be similar to Lil Wayne. You're gonna be similar to LeBron, right? And that's kind of what I see when they talk about peer pressure and social influence. I think social influence is really something that if you're going to allow social influence to impact you, then put yourself in an environment where you're going to be influenced by people that are going to make you do the things that you want to do. So if you want to lose weight, get into a group of people that are into losing weight. If you want to be intellectual, make your peer group other intellectuals. Don't try to be an intellectual person when you're surrounded by a group of ignorant people. Like being that's going to frustrate you, and you're going to be mad, and you're going to be punching at the air, and it's terrible. Like literally the most torturous conversations I have is when I try to have a deep conversation with people who ain't trying to be deep. In those conversations, I just need to sit back and just listen and study. I feel like the guy who used to go in the wilderness and study the animals and stuff, and I would just study human nature, and I would just be like, wow, this really ignorant conversation is really interesting to these people, and they're talking about stuff that just doesn't make any sense. And I know the reason you believe that is because you watch too much Fox News, and you believe that because you watch MSNBC, and you believe that because you watch BET. And I'm not judging in a negative way. I try not to do that, but I don't I realize this is not my conversation. This is not a time for me to bring out the other side of Boyce that wants to go super deep on topics, because this is not the crowd to do that with. So find your crowd, find your people. Be intentional about that. I think that consciousness is also connected to intentionality. So if I'm consciously and intentionally selecting who I want in my space, what woman I want by my side, what friends I want in my house, what people I want to talk to, then that allows me to structure an environment that is conducive to me becoming the man that I want to be. I don't want to be a man who's out drinking liquor at the strip club and using drugs. So I'm not really going to want to spend a lot of time around people that are doing that. I want to be a man who's trying to be better, who's trying to pursue his goals, who's trying to be smarter, etc. So when I pick my friends, I pick them specifically and deliberately, because unfortunately there's a culture that kind of wants to push you in a different direction. So use peer pressure to your advantage. Don't let peer pressure cause you to do things that are not going to be good for you. Number three is instant gratification. This is another reason people overspend. That's a big one. So the study was done by Frederick Lowenstein and Donahue in 2002. The research paper was called Delayed Discounting in Economic Decision Making, a meta-analysis. So they said that the tendency to prioritize immediate rewards over long-term benefits, known as delayed discounting, meaning that if something's delayed in your mind, you discount it. You just kind of like, it's not as meaningful because I got to wait 6 months or whatever. This can lead to overspending. People often choose to buy now rather than save for future needs. So instant gratification is a big, big problem. And unfortunately, instant gratification is encouraged everywhere. Everywhere, all people talk about is the present, and all they're worried about is right now. The politicians do it. The politicians have screwed up our government financially, because every politician is thinking about getting reelected in 2 or 3 years. They're not thinking about what the country's going to look like 50 years from now. Therefore, in 50 years, the country's going to be a mess. Number four, marketing and advertising tactics. Marketing strategies such as limited time offers and flashy advertisements create a sense of urgency and excitement that can trigger impulsive buying and overspending. This research study was done by Kotler, and it said it's called The Effectiveness of Marketing Strategies in Influencing Consumer Behavior. And then so marketing and just kind of pushing different buttons like buy now. If you don't get it by such and such, then whatever. Like these tactics are used regularly when it comes to offering various products and items. And in fact, actually, when they talk about selling luxury goods, one thing that they do is they train them to pretend like they don't really want your business, because they know that people tend to want things that they can't have. You see this sometimes maybe in dating. Like, has anybody ever seen somebody who stops liking a person because that person likes them so much, right? Like at first you're interested in that woman, and then she shows a lot of interest in you, and then you're like, okay, I don't want you anymore because you're not a challenge. Like there are people that do that, or I've seen women do that too, right? You only like the guys who don't want you, and the guy who wants you, you see that as a weakness, or there's something wrong with him. And I think this is something that's just ingrained in a lot of us. And I had to tell people, I said, I didn't chase my wife. I did. She didn't play hard to get. I told her, I said, I like you. She said, I like you too. And then we say, great, there's a match. That's it. It wasn't like, I like you. Well, no, I'm not interested. And if she had played hard to get, then she wouldn't have got. I just say, I said, if my wife had played hard to get, I don't I didn't play those games. No, it's like either you like me or you don't. And if you tell me you don't like me, then that means you don't like me. And I'm not gonna why would I like somebody who doesn't like me? That don't even make no damn sense. That's weird. That's very weird. And because there was another woman years ago, I'm not gonna say her name because in case she watches or something, but I kid you not, and she was I was attracted to her. She was smart. I like the smart women. I don't ladies, don't ever let men make you feel bad about being educated and stuff. Smart women are awesome, and men, don't be intimidated by smart women. If she's a good woman, then she'll make you smarter. Like don't be intimidated by that. There's nothing to be intimidated by. Just treat each other with respect. And remember, everybody can learn from everybody. PhDs, some of us PhDs, we know a lot about one thing, but there's a lot of stuff that we're missing. So never assume you can't learn from someone with less education than you. That's flawed thinking. Education is not the same as knowledge, and knowledge is not the same as wisdom. Wisdom says that your little PhD, your little MD, your little JD, whatever, that means you have a lot of knowledge in one special area. That does not mean you know everything. So don't be that person who thinks they know everything. Okay. So anyway, so yeah, there was another lady, and this is a true story. I never told this story before, but it's funny because it's relevant. So why not share it? And I was probably about 30, and I got into that stage in life where I was ready to, settle down. I didn't want to settle down when I was broke. I'm sorry. It doesn't feel good to like. I was having trouble feeding myself. I didn't want the responsibility to have to feed a bunch of other people. I know that some people say, "Oh, that stuff shouldn't matter." It mattered to me. I wanted to have a decent income because there's a lot of pressure when you can't provide. So I got my first job. So I was feeling myself. I'm making good money. She was another professor, just like my wife is a professor. I was very attracted to her, and she had a good job. So one my good job with her good job, we had a good income. And I went to this lady, and I just kind of let her know I was interested. I said, "Hey, why don't we have a relationship?" And she starts going, I don't know. I got to think about it. I don't know. I don't think it would work. And she starts telling me all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And I'm kind of disappointed, like, dang, well, I thought we were good. And so 3 weeks later, her friend calls me and goes, "Well, why?" And I'm telling her friend, because here's the thing: when you a young black man with money, you 30 years old and you making six figures, there was women lined up around the block. It wasn't hard to meet a new woman. So I met another lady that I liked, and I was telling my friend, I was like, "Yeah, I met this girl. We're going out and da da da," right? And she goes, "Well, what about so and so, the girl that rejected me?" And I was like, "But I said, but I did ask her. I told her. I told her the whole story. I said, yeah. I said, hey, why don't we date?" And she was hemming and hawing and saying, no, thank you, I'm not interested, and blah blah blah. And you know what she said? I kid you not. She goes, "No, no, no. She likes you. She was just rejecting you to see if you were serious." And I was like, what? I was I was like, no, I am a serious man. If I ask you a serious question, I just expect a serious answer. I don't know how to play those games. I was not trained on I did not grow up believing or being taught that no means yes and yes means no. I didn't. Because that gets guys arrested, by the way. That gets you labeled as a predator, or that gets you a sexual harassment accusation when you assume. And that's my belief that no means no, yes means yes. And I know that there's nuances to this. I believe that with human nature, yeah, there was a time where like that song, remember that song? It's cold outside. I really got to be going. Come on, baby, it's freezing out there. No, I shouldn't. I really shouldn't stay. No, come on, baby, you gotta. Right, that. Do y'all know? Y'all remember when that song got labeled as like a Predator song or something in the Me Too movement, where they were saying that they can't play that song anymore because it's predatory sexual harassment, or it's rape culture or something, right? So there was a time where you could have those sort of nuanced experiences with each other, but the world I grew up in was like, no, if you want to be safe, You take people for their word. So when you say no, that means okay, no problem. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the harasser. I'm not the guy. I don't. And also, here's the other thing too. There was a self-esteem dimension to this that says, why in the hell would I want to be somewhere where I'm not wanted? Like, why would I want to be? Why would I want to pursue someone or something that doesn't want me back? And that made me think about how many of us kind of do the opposite. We will literally give our very best to people who give us their worst. And that struggle love, it translates to everything. We do struggle love when it comes to economics. I believe collectively, white America's kind of shown, not that white people are all bad, but systematically, they don't give a damn about you. They don't like you. They're not going to give you any of that money back. They don't respect you. They're not going to support your reparations or anything. But yet you will be so quick to seek out their validation. You will be so quick to give them your money. You will give them your time. You will sell them your children. You will sell your children to the corporate plantation and say, "Go serve that white man over there. He gonna pay you. He gonna pay you enough money to pay your rent. Not to get rich. He's gonna give you enough money just to get by." We do that. We are really deeply committed to people, places, and things that are not equally committed to us. And I argue that that is a psychological problem. That is a self-esteem issue. So the same way when I talk about my wife, and I don't play when it comes to that type of stuff. I make it 100% clear. When I told my wife I was interested in her, and she replied and said, "I'm interested in you too," that let us know that there was a match. If one of us had played this goofy game of like, I'm gonna pretend like I don't like you to make you like me more, that to me is not a healthy game, nor is it a safe game to play for me as a black man for sure. I'm not here to harass my way into your life or to beg my way into your life or to wear you down until you finally agree to let me in, because then I'm setting this terrible standard. I'm gonna have to always meet this standard, and I'm always on thin ice because the minute I mess up, you're gonna kick me to the curb. No, I have value. She has value. I see her value, she sees mine. And we're clear about that. That's what grown-ups do. And I think the same thing should be true in any area of your life. When you're talking about spending money, let me tell you, one way that they sell luxury items is they act like they don't like you and they don't care if you're there and they really don't even want you around. Do you know Bernie Madoff? Do you know the way Bernie Madoff? Anybody, give me a guess if you know the name Bernie Madoff. Y'all know Madoff, right? Y'all remember Madoff? He ran the biggest Ponzi scheme in American history to the tune of tens of billions of dollars. Do you know how Madoff got? And he was robbing his own people. He's Jewish, by the way. He was robbing Jewish people in a major way to the tune of like 60, 70 billion dollars. Do you know how Madoff got so many smart people in the Jewish community? See, we y'all think Jewish people are perfect when it comes to money. No, they're not perfect. They're flawed like us. Do you know how he got so many people to invest? He acted like he didn't want their money. He acted like, I got a bunch of other clients. I have a bunch of people who are already offering me millions of dollars. So if you don't give me your money by tomorrow, then I'm not interested. And so people would say, "Oh, well, I really want him to take my money, so I went ahead and hurried up and gave it to him because I was so scared." That's what he did. That's what he played hard to get because he knows that we're raised to be suckers in that way. We're raised to want things that we cannot have, and by people presenting something in a scarce fashion or in a way where they are you get the FOMO, thank you, that's a great term, where you create this space where it's like, look, I don't want nothing to do with you. It does something when you tell people they can't have something, they really really want it. So when white America tells black people all the things that we can't have, and they have all these things sort of locked away that we have to beg our way to get access to, we will literally sacrifice everything to get access to that special space. And what I think is a great mind trick, that because they're doing mind tricks on you, you might as well do mind tricks on yourself. Is a mind trick that I did on Boyce was I said, "No, Boyce, you are in the special space. You are the special space. This Stop begging other people to let you to be around them. They should be begging to be around you." And not in a disrespectful way, but where you're sitting right now is the place to be. And I remember saying this when I was sitting in my little apartment. It wasn't a little apartment; it was a little townhouse in Syracuse, and I was doing this work, writing these articles nobody was reading, and I didn't. I was doing work nobody paid attention to. I remember saying, "I'm going to work so hard, and I'm going to be so damn good at what I do that people are going to come looking for me. They're going to say, damn, this guy in Syracuse is doing some amazing stuff. How do I get in touch with him? And years later, one day, my assistant calls me and says, Tyler Perry wants to talk to you. And then I get another call. Farrakhan is on the phone. And then I get another call. Cornell West wants to speak to you. Like, so all these people that I admired, that I looked up to, and I was respectful. I didn't want. I was never arrogant toward them because I love all these people actually. Um, they saw what I was doing. They saw that yeah, there's value over here too. And so what I'm saying to you, and this is a good point to close on, is that you are valuable right where you are. You are as precious as you choose to be. Your community, in my view, our community, that's the sweet spot, man. That's where the gold is buried. The gold is buried in your backyard. You ain't got to pack your bags and go searching the world, looking for love in all the wrong places, chasing people down, begging people to acknowledge you, begging people to tell you that Black Lives Matter, begging people to let you into their institutions. You've got the juice already. You've got that. You just have to see it. You have to see it and you have to refine it. The things you don't invest in are the things that will never grow. So we get so busy when you talk about Black economics, we get so busy watering everybody else's garden that we forget that we've got a garden in our own backyard that isn't getting any water at all. You leave your community every day to go work for other people in other people's businesses and do stuff for other folks and buy stuff from other people. And then when you finally get home, your community's in shambles, your family done fell apart, and everything that could have been amazing in your life has died because you've been trained to invest in everything except for yourself. Your children alone, just your children, I'm not talking about your human capital and your creativity and everything else, just your children are a multi-trillion-dollar asset that you're not really investing in properly. We are not investing heavily in our children. If I was 22 years old again and I lived my life again, I would have found a great quality woman at the age of 22, had about 14 kids, and spent all my time investing in those 14 kids and making them into clones of whatever set of ideologies that we believed in as a family. And I would start at the age of 0 to make sure that we were all on the same page because ultimately I would be building an empire. That to me, that investment will be more important than any job I could get. It would be more important than any stupid award I could win if I was running off to Hollywood. It will be more important than any of the other stuff people are doing. So find the things that matter to you and invest in that. Invest in you. Invest in the people around you. Like that's where your win is. Your win is not looking for love in all the wrong places or begging white folks to give you a seat at the table. To hell with their table. I don't want their table. I don't want to be at your table. I got a damn table. I'm building a table. And I'm building a better table. My table's made out of gold. Your table's made out of faulty plastic. I'm not integrated into a burning house. I'm building a powerful kingdom. That's the mindset I think that will get us to the next level. In fact, it's the mindset I know that will get us to the next level. So keep building, keep investing in the things around you. That's how you win. All right, I gotta go. It's time for us to finish up for today. I really enjoyed talking to you. We're gonna be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you want to get the reminder, just text the word morning to the number 87948 and I'll send you a link. So text morning to 87948. Also tonight, at 8 p.m. I'm meeting the prime students. We're going to talk about making money selling stock options. You're going to like it. It's really a lot of fun. It's really good stuff. Also, in case you didn't know, at drboycebooks.com, my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, is there, along with books from my wife. We have financial flashcards for kids, things like that. I know it's summertime, and if you have kids, your kids are probably sitting around doing nothing. So feel free to go to drboycebooks.com and take a look at some of the resources there, and maybe that will help you in your journey. So God bless you guys. It was real, and I'll see you all tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. Have a good day. Bye bye.